Russia operates the world's third largest military, with over 900,000 active personnel and an arsenal built from 7 decades of Soviet engineering and modern upgrades. This is every major weapon system Russia sends to war. We begin with tanks, T-54 and T-55. These tanks are the foundation of modern armored warfare, rolling off Soviet production lines by the tens of thousands, and seeing action in conflicts from the deserts of Africa to the mountains of Afghanistan. The T-54 laid the groundwork back in 1946, and by the time the T-55 came around in the 50s and 60s, it had become a symbol of reliability. With its 100mm gun and straightforward design, it was as easy to maintain as it was to operate. Even today, these tanks are still in service, not because they're cutting edge, but because they work. In a world where complex systems can fail, sometimes simplicity, familiarity, even is what wins the fight. In the early 60s, the T-62 brought something new to the table, the 115mm smoothbore gun, which was years ahead of its time. It was a tank built to keep enemies guessing. Low profile and hard to spot, the T-62 set the stage for how tanks would be designed for decades to come. The T-62M and T-62 millivolts variants even pushed it further, with reactive armor and improved fire control. What's remarkable about the T-62 isn't just that it's still kicking around today. It's that it still does what it was meant to do, provide dependable firepower and a solid presence on the battlefield, even as tech advances around it. The T-64 didn't just push the envelope, it shredded it. In the 60s, it introduced the world to composite armor, the autoloader, and the first 125mm smoothbore gun on a Soviet main battle tank. Western designers had to rethink their entire approach to armored warfare because the T-64 represented a shift toward the modern. While the design was ahead of its time, today it's a bit of a rarity, with only about 50 still in active service. But those T-64 tanks that remain, they're a testament to Soviet ingenuity, having paved the way for every main battle tank that followed. A piece of history that's still holding its own, if only just. The T-72 is the workhorse of Russian tank design. Thousands were built, and this tank was destined to serve everywhere from the cold expanses of Eastern Europe to the deserts of the Middle East. Even today, you'll find T-72 seconds in service around the globe, with variants like the T-72B3M still getting upgrades to stay relevant. The basic T-72 was solid, but modern versions bring in current generation fire control, reactive armor, and updated engines to keep pace with new threats. That 125mm gun, it's still one of the most reliable in the business, proving that a good design doesn't need to be reinvented every decade. The T-80 was different from the start. While most tanks relied on diesel engines, the T-80 used a gas turbine engine, giving it acceleration and smoothness that diesel-powered tanks couldn't match. Sure, that turbine engine drank fuel like it was water, but it also delivered speed and power, making it a force to be reckoned with. The T-80 BVM variant, it's everything you want in a modern tank. Upgraded armor, advanced optics, and fire control that keeps it ahead of the pack. The T-80 was built for speed, and the BVM variant ensures that it still has it, even in the era of next-gen armored vehicles. Building on the success of the T-72, the T-90 is Russia's modern-day answer to armored warfare. The T-90M variant takes everything that worked in its predecessors and modernizes it with better armor, active protection systems, and upgraded electronics. It's a tank that draws from decades of experience and lessons learned on the battlefield. The T-90A and T-90S variants are still in use today, proving that even in the face of rapid technological advancement, the fundamentals of tank design, stability, firepower, and reliability still reign supreme. The T-90 isn't just a tank, it's a symbol of Russian armored dominance, continually evolving to meet the challenges of modern warfare. Moving on to armored personnel carriers and infantry fighting vehicles, BMP-1. If you served in a Soviet mechanized unit from the 60s onward, this was your ride. The first infantry fighting vehicle that could swim and shoot mechanized infantry that didn't have to dismount to fight. Revolutionary thinking for its time. That 73mm gun had a reputation for being temperamental, and the ATGM launcher worked when it felt like cooperating. Thin armor meant you weren't taking hits from anything serious, but the concept changed how armies thought about moving infantry into combat. The BMP-1AM tried bringing 60-year-old fundamentals into the modern era, BMP-2. The Soviets looked at the BMP-1's biggest flaw and fixed it. Out went that unreliable 73mm, in came a 30mm autocannon that actually hit what you aimed at. Improved sights, better turret layout, same basic chassis that won't stop modern threats, but at least the firepower became something crews could trust. Hundreds are still running because they built thousands back when production numbers seemed unlimited. BMP-3. This one represented completely different thinking. Instead of incremental improvements, Soviet designers went back to the drawing board. 100mm gun, firing both conventional rounds and guided missiles, backed by a 30mm autocannon, sitting on a chassis with genuinely improved armor layout. The BMP-3M variant adds current generation fire control and better protection packages to a platform that proved sometimes you need to redesign rather than just upgrade. BMP-T Terminator. Urban combat taught a brutal lesson. Tanks are vulnerable when infantry can get close with RPGs. Russia built the Terminator specifically to solve that problem. Two 30mm autocannons, grenade launchers, ATGMs, all mounted on a T-72 chassis with the armor to survive city fighting. Keep threats away from your tanks when every window might hide a launcher. The concept makes perfect sense. Only a handful exists though, because tank support vehicles only matter when you've got tanks to support. 9P-149 Sturm. Mount anti-tank missiles on an MTLB cargo carrier, and you've got yourself a mobile launcher built for shoot and scoot operations. Wire-guided missiles let you engage armor from distance. Track chassis keeps you mobile enough to relocate before counterfire arrives. The MTLB base wasn't designed for direct combat. It's a cargo hauler doing double duty as a weapons platform. 9P-1572 Chrysanthema. Take a BMP-3 chassis and build a dedicated tank killer around it. That's the Chrysanthema. Supersonic anti-tank missiles with laser beam guidance and tandem warheads that reach out past 6 kilometers. It's designed to engage heavy armor from positions where return fire becomes a problem for the other guy, not you. The BMP-3 base gives it better protection than most missile carriers, though that's not saying much when you're hunting main battle tanks. Cornet T. The Cornet anti-tank system proved itself genuinely dangerous to modern armor across multiple conflicts. Mounted on a BMP-3 chassis, and you get range past 5 kilometers, with guidance systems that make long-distance kills possible. The track mobility means repositioning when you need to move firing positions. Cornet D. Same Cornet missiles that make the tracked version effective, mounted on a GAZ-2 Tiger wheeled chassis. The trade is obvious speed and easier deployment, but you're putting lightly armored wheels under weapons meant for killing main battle tanks. Mobility without protection only works when nobody's looking for you. BRDM-2. This 4-wheeled scout car rolled out in the 60s, and variants are still operational. Light armor, amphibious, with a layout that makes you feel like you're driving a bathtub with wheels. But it gets reconnaissance teams mobile when stealth matters more than protection. The BRM-1K Command variant turns the basic scout into a mobile headquarters for recon units, MTLB. The Swiss Army knife of tracked carriers. It's been adapted for troop transport, command posts, weapons platforms, and anything else that needs tracks and a roof. Russian forces use them extensively because they're simple, they work, and there's thousands sitting in depots ready to fill whatever role needs filling. Legacy BTR, Series 50, 60, and 70. 3 generations of Soviet 8-wheeled personnel carriers, each one representing its decade. The 50 from the 50s, the 60 from the 60s, the 70 from the 70s. Same basic concept, amphibious, lightly armored with thin aluminum, built in massive numbers during the Cold War. Each generation tried fixing the previous one's problems without fundamentally changing what they were. Russia's pulling them from storage when quantity matters more than capability. BTR-80. This is the one that actually worked. 8 wheels, amphibious capability, reliable enough to become the standard for Russian mechanized forces. Better mobility, improved firepower, a design that justified widespread deployment beyond just filling inventory numbers. It proved the 8-wheeled concept could be more than just acceptable. BTR-90. Russia's modern take on keeping the 8-wheeled personnel carrier concept relevant. Their latest thinking on wheeled armor, though the fundamental challenge remains wheeled vehicles with light armor facing weapons designed to kill much heavier platforms. Bulat. Russia's modern armored personnel carrier, built for contemporary combat zones. Recent enough to incorporate lessons learned from post-Soviet conflicts, modern enough to offer actual survivability beyond pulling Cold War stockpile equipment out of storage. Ural Typhoon. Part of Russia's Typhoon MRAP family, this heavily armored personnel carrier is built specifically for mine and ambush protection. It's slow and uncomfortable, but when you're transporting troops through areas where the biggest threat is buried in the road, that armor matters more than speed. Kamaz Typhoon. This Typhoon variant focuses on troop transport with the same mine protection and armor philosophy. High mobility and protection against mines and small arms fire make it useful for moving personnel through dangerous areas where lighter vehicles would get crews killed. BMOT. Flamethrowers require you to get within 50 meters of whatever you're about to incinerate, which in urban combat means you're close enough to see faces before you pull the trigger. The BMOT is track protection for the kind of troops doing work that's equal parts effective and terrifying, clearing buildings and fortifications with weapons that don't leave much room for hesitation or second chances. Moving on to engineering and support vehicles. Akhmat. Chechen forces requested these at the start of the Ukraine war when they needed armored mobility fast and couldn't wait for fancy platforms. Built by Rem Diesel on a Kamaz 5350 chassis, the Akhmat uses frame-based construction with interchangeable body types, practical engineering that prioritizes getting vehicles into service over perfection. It's not as advanced as Typhoon family vehicles, but the V-shaped hull handles 6 kilograms of TNT equivalent, and the armor stops rifle fire, which covers most of what infantry mobility vehicles encounter. Sometimes good enough right now beats perfect 6 months from now. Spartak. VPK Ural built these versatile mobility vehicles for logistical roles across Russian forces. They haul troops and supplies in situations where you need wheels that work without the complexity and cost of armored platforms, filling the gap between civilian trucks and military fighting vehicles. Sarmat 3. Special forces got their own dedicated mobility platform designed specifically for rapid movement and logistical support, built for operations where you need to move fast and don't want heavy armored vehicles announcing your presence to everyone within earshot. Ulan. Sometimes, the smartest logistics solution is taking civilian automotive platforms and militarizing them into light tactical transporters. Russia keeps fielding new variants, because vehicles that don't require specialized mechanics to maintain have real value when you're operating far from major repair facilities. Tiger. Russia looked at the Humvee and decided they could do it better. The Tiger's been in production since the early 2000s, and it's become the standard for light tactical mobility. It hauls 8 to 11 troops depending on configuration, runs reconnaissance missions, handles patrol work, and serves as a weapons platform for machine guns or automatic grenade launchers. Here's where it gets interesting. The Tiger was designed from day one with ballistic protection built in, not bolted on as an afterthought like early Humvees. Armor that stops small arms fire, shell splinters, and IEDs come standard, which means crews aren't gambling their lives on whether someone remembered to install the armor kit. It's fast enough to matter, protected enough to survive contact, and versatile enough to handle whatever mission comes up without requiring the fuel consumption and maintenance headaches of tracked vehicles. Astes. The newer option that entered service in May 2024 brings modern thinking to infantry mobility for logistics and combat support roles in harsh environments. It represents Russia's continued work on light mobility platforms for units that need reliable transportation without the cost and complexity of armored fighting vehicles. Iveco LMV, an Italian-manufactured infantry mobility vehicle that Russian forces use for logistical support operations, though production has been halted. When you need vehicles that work, sometimes you buy from whoever's building them, at least until international politics makes that supply chain more complicated than it's worth. Linza. Combat ambulances started arriving in 2020 because the math on battlefield medicine is simple. Get wounded soldiers to medical care fast, and more of them survive. These purpose-built medical vehicles protect medics and casualties during evacuation, when the trip from the fighting to the aid station is often the most dangerous part of getting treated. UAZ 452. This boxy light utility vehicle has been hauling Soviet and Russian soldiers and supplies since the 1960s. Simple, durable platform that keeps running when maintained and refuses to die even when neglected. That explains why it's still in service decades after most militaries would have retired it. UAZ 469, another Cold War survivor that's still doing logistics and transport work despite being older than most of the soldiers riding in it. The 469 earned its reputation for reliability in conditions that would kill more sophisticated vehicles. Russian forces keep using them because sometimes simple and proven beats modern and complicated. UAZ 3132. This variant fills various logistical roles across Russian forces. It's part of a family of light utility vehicles that share parts and maintenance procedures, making them practical for military use, even if they're not winning any technology awards. UAZ Patriot. The more modern version of the UAZ utility vehicle line that's replacing the aging 469 in some logistical roles. It brings updated features and better reliability while keeping the basic UAZ concept of a simple utility vehicle that works when you need it to work. Desert Cross 1003. When Russia needed utility terrain vehicles for off-road transportation of supplies and equipment, they bought these Chinese manufactured units in large numbers. Sometimes the practical answer is buying what's available that works, rather than spending years developing your own version. E-scooters and dirt bikes. Frontline soldiers started using electric scooters and motorcycles for light, rapid transportation when they needed mobility and didn't want to wait for trucks or heavier vehicles. It's not in any doctrine manual, but 2 wheels beats walking when you need to move fast through difficult terrain. Haval H9, a Chinese-made SUV that's now being massively supplied to the Russian army for logistics and frontline operations. When you need vehicles in quantity and domestic production can't keep up, you buy from whoever's manufacturing what you need. KAMAZ 43501. This light cargo truck does the essential work of transporting goods and supplies across rough terrain. Built tough enough for military use without being so heavy that it can't handle roads that aren't exactly roads anymore. Ural Light Cargo Truck. The Ural name has meant reliable cargo hauling in harsh conditions for generations, and this light truck continues that tradition. It transports supplies and equipment where they need to go without drama or complexity. GAZ 33097. This light cargo truck handles various logistical tasks across different terrains. Not glamorous, not high-tech, but it shows up and does the job when you need supplies moved. Ural 4320. This medium cargo truck has been a mainstay of Soviet and Russian military logistics for decades because the basic design works and keeps working. It plays a critical role in Russian logistics by providing transport for supplies and troops across any terrain that'll support wheels. KAMAZ 5350, a medium cargo truck that's been vital in moving military supplies and personnel across Russian forces. The KAMAZ 5350 represents the kind of modular transport capability that lets logistics units adapt the same basic platform for different missions without reinventing the wheel every time. KAMAZ 65115, another medium cargo truck in the KAMAZ family used for various logistical purposes. It ensures the movement of resources and troops in both frontline and support roles, because modern military operations run on logistics as much as firepower. ZIL 4334. This medium cargo truck provides essential logistical support by transporting supplies where combat zones need them. The ZIL name meant Soviet industrial capacity for generations, and this truck carries that legacy forward into the present. KAMAZ 6350, a heavy cargo truck that's essential for moving larger quantities of equipment, fuel, and supplies when lighter trucks aren't enough. The 6350 is built for the heavy lifting that keeps mechanized forces supplied and operational. Ural 5323. When you need to move tanks and other equipment that's too heavy for normal trucks, this is what shows up. Built for the kind of hauling where the cargo weighs more than most countries' entire vehicle fleets. And it's been doing that work across Russian logistics operations for years. KAMAZ 65225. This heavy tractor exists to haul the stuff that's too big and heavy for anything else. Tanks, artillery pieces, equipment that can't move itself efficiently. Moving a tank under its own power burns fuel and wears out expensive components. So you load it on something like this and save the fighting vehicle for actual fighting. PTS, rivers don't care about your operational timeline. And the Soviets got tired of watching advances stall, while engineers spent days building bridges. The PTS is their solution, an amphibious tracked transport that's been swimming cargo across water obstacles since the Cold War. On land, it's about as graceful as a drunk elephant, slow and awkward. But drop it in a river, and suddenly you're moving vehicles and supplies to the other side without exposing bridge-building crews to artillery fire or waiting for ferries that might not exist. It's unglamorous engineering that solves a problem most people don't think about until a river stops their entire operation. DT 30 Vidyas. Imagine terrain so rough that even tracked vehicles struggle, and you've got the environment this articulated transport was built for. The articulation means it can flex over obstacles that would break rigid vehicles, making it the answer when you need to move heavy equipment across ground that would stop everything else. GAZ 3351 Loss. This articulated track beast carries heavy loads across terrain where the word road is more of a hope than a reality. It supports military operations in environments where wheeled vehicles are useless and conventional tracks aren't flexible enough for the obstacles. Plastin SN, an all-terrain tracked vehicle for military engineering work, transport, and reconnaissance when the environment is too difficult for wheels, but you don't need the armor or firepower of a combat vehicle. Sometimes you just need tracks and a cargo bed that can handle terrain that would destroy conventional trucks. GAZ 3344. Another Russian articulated tracked hauler built for moving heavy loads across terrain that laughs at the concept of paved roads. When your operational area involves mud, snow, rocks, and everything in between, this is what keeps logistics moving forward. Brem 1. Without recovery vehicles, every damaged tank becomes a permanent loss instead of a repair job. These armored recovery vehicles pull damaged tanks and armored vehicles off battlefields under fire, doing the dangerous work of saving expensive equipment that would otherwise sit there until it gets completely destroyed or captured. Brem L. Beglianka. Mechanized warfare is brutal on equipment. Tanks throw tracks, fighting vehicles take hits that disable but don't destroy them, and expensive platforms break down in the middle of operations. Without recovery vehicles, every breakdown becomes a permanent loss or a prize for the enemy. The Beglianka is Russia's modernized armored recovery vehicle, built for the dangerous work of pulling damaged armor off battlefields before it gets completely destroyed or captured. It represents updated thinking on tactical recovery, because the mission hasn't changed, just the threats facing crews who have to operate under fire while dragging 30-ton hulks to safety. Save the vehicle today, repair it tomorrow, put it back in the fight next week. That's the calculation that makes recovery platforms essential. Brem K. Not every disabled vehicle is sitting in a muddy field 10 kilometers from the nearest road. The Brem K is wheeled armored recovery for situations where speed on pavement matters more than all-terrain capability, getting to broken down vehicles fast, and pulling them to safety before the enemy realizes there's a stationary target sitting there. REM KL. Built on a Ural 5350 chassis, this is your basic battlefield tow truck. When tracked, recovery vehicles are overkill or would take too long to position. The REM KL handles straightforward recovery tasks, where roads exist and you just need to hook up and haul out without the complexity of heavier platforms. REM KC. This one's different. It's a mobile repair shop based on a BAZ 6910 chassis. Instead of just dragging everything back to rear area maintenance, the REM KC brings the tools and capability to fix problems where they happen. Field level repairs mean getting vehicles back in action hours or days sooner than waiting for them to reach proper facilities. IRM Zuk. A reconnaissance vehicle built specifically for military engineering tasks, providing operational reconnaissance and battlefield analysis for units pushing forward. Engineers need to know what they're dealing with before they start building, breaching, or clearing, and this gives them the mobility and protection to find out. BAT-2. This thing looks like a mechanical rhino beetle mounted on tracks, and that's basically what it is. An armored bulldozer built to reshape battlefields when obstacles are stopping your advance. Minefields, wire entanglements, rubble, fortifications. The BAT-2 pushes through and clears paths when your forces are stuck waiting for engineers to make the ground safe. It's not subtle, and it's not fast, but watching one of these blade through obstacles that would take infantry hours to clear by hand makes you appreciate ugly, practical engineering. The crews operating these aren't fighting the enemy directly, they're fighting the terrain and the barriers, doing the grinding work that turns impassable into advance continues. IMR-2 and IMR-3M. Engineers don't get to wait for the shooting to stop before they start working. These heavily armored combat engineering vehicles are built on tank chassis specifically so crews can breach obstacles, clear mines, and dig trenches while taking fire. When the front lines need engineering work done right now, and come back when it's safer isn't an option, you send platforms that can survive the same threats as main battle tanks. Mobile repair complexes. Wars aren't won by the side with the newest equipment. They're won by the side that can keep their equipment running. These mobile repair facilities, mounted on Kamaz and Ural trucks, are traveling machine shops that fix problems in the field, instead of waiting for broken gear to limp hundreds of kilometers back to proper facilities. Field repairs mean vehicles get back in action days or weeks sooner, which matters more than any technological advantage when the fight's still going. MTU 72 and MTU 90, crossing a river under fire, is when mechanized units are most vulnerable. Half your force stuck on one bank, engineers exposed in the open, and the enemy knows exactly where you are. Vehicle launch bridges solve that by deploying spans in minutes from armored platforms. Based on T-72 and T-90 tank chassis, they roll up, drop their bridge, let the column cross, then pick it back up and move. TMM-3. The KMAS 5350 chassis makes these wheeled vehicle launch bridges fast enough to keep pace with advancing operations. Deploy, cross, retract, move to the next gap. Wheeled platforms trade some load capacity for speed and road mobility, which matters when you're spanning gaps in environments where every minute stopped is another minute for enemy artillery to find you. TMM-6. Sometimes you need a bridge 5 minutes ago, and the tactical situation won't wait for proper engineering. This wheeled vehicle launch bridge exists for exactly that scenario. Quick gap crossing when speed matters infinitely more than building something that'll last. GMZ-3. Laying mines by hand is slow, backbreaking, dangerous work that takes forever. The GMZ-3 mechanized the entire process, seeding large areas with mines faster than infantry could even walk the same ground. It creates hazard zones that force enemy units to slow down, reroute, or risk getting shredded without requiring engineers to manually place thousands of mines one at a time. BMR-3M. Nobody notices good mine clearing until they don't get blown up. This armored mine clearing vehicle does the grinding, dangerous work of clearing paths through minefields so advancing units can move safely. It's slow, methodical, unglamorous work that rarely gets recognition. But every meter of cleared ground is another meter where mines can't do their job. Meteorite. When you need a path through a minefield immediately and don't have hours for mechanical clearing, this armored launcher fires explosive line charges that detonate mines across a wide corridor. It's not subtle. You're basically blowing up the minefield with a bigger explosion, but it creates safe passages for advancing troops in minutes instead of hours. Sometimes speed beats precision. BAZ-6403. A modern main battle tank burns through fuel and wears down components just driving to the fight. The BAZ-6403 tank transporter does the math differently. Load the tank, haul it on wheels, save the tracks and engine hours for actual combat instead of 100-kilometer road marches. Tanks arrive ready to fight instead of needing maintenance before they even see action. Ural 63704. Strategic mobility means getting your armor where it needs to be without destroying it in transit. This tank transporter handles the logistics of moving heavy platforms across distance efficiently, preserving operational life for missions that matter. Every hour a tank spends on a transporter is an hour its tracks aren't wearing out and its engine isn't burning fuel that could be used in combat. MDK 3. Soldiers with shovels can dig trenches, but it takes days of backbreaking work to create what this trencher does in hours. The MDK 3 digs trenches and fortifications in battlefield conditions because modern warfare still requires defensive positions, and mechanized trenching beats manual labor every time. BTM 3. This trencher creates the kind of earthworks that make defensive positions survivable when modern weapons are trying to destroy them. It digs defensive positions for troops and vehicles, playing a critical role in fortifying lines because even with all the technology available, sometimes the best defense is still dirt between you and incoming fire. PBU 100. A drilling vehicle for when you need holes in the ground for specific purposes during field operations. Not widely used and availability is limited, but specialized tasks sometimes require specialized tools that general purpose equipment can't handle efficiently enough to be worth the time. B10, M2S, and BTS 150B. Construction equipment doesn't normally need armor plating, but battlefield engineering isn't normal construction. These armored bulldozers and track drilling rigs clear debris, dig trenches, and create defensive positions while people are actively trying to kill the operators. Built on heavy-duty tracked platforms, because taking small arms fire while you're trying to dig a fighting position is just part of the job description. Most civilian construction workers would quit on day one. EOV 4421. This wheeled excavator has been rolling on a Soviet Kraz 255B chassis since the Cold War, and it's still digging. Sometimes tracked vehicles are overkill. You just need something mobile that can dig where you need digging done without the complexity of heavy equipment. The fact that this Cold War survivor is still handling excavation tasks decades later says more about Russian maintenance culture than it does about modern engineering. EOV 3521. Speed matters when you're digging defensive positions and the enemy's trying to figure out where you are. This wheeled excavator deploys fast, digs trenches and fortifications quickly, and keeps pace with operations that can't afford to wait around for tracked excavators to slowly lumber into position. Not as capable cross-country, but when there's any kind of road, wheels beat tracks for getting there first. EOV 3523. One-wheeled excavator design isn't enough when you're fortifying hundreds of kilometers of front. The 3523 does essentially the same work as the 3521 because modern warfare requires digging defensive positions across vast distances, and you need multiple platforms doing the same essential job simultaneously. Redundancy isn't glamorous, but it's how engineering operations actually function at scale. KMV-10K. In 2018, Russia turned a Kamaz 5350 truck into a mobile crane because field engineering discovered that nothing stops an operation faster than needing to lift something heavy and having no way to do it. Bridge components, disabled vehicles, construction materials, all useless until you can actually move them into position. The KMV-10K solves the we need a crane right now problem without waiting days for tracked equipment to arrive. KS55729-7M. Lift capacity matters, but so does getting there. This Kamaz-based wheeled crane can actually reach forward positions on existing roads before the tactical situation changes, which beats having a more capable tracked crane that's still 3 hours away when you need lifting done in the next 30 minutes. Engineering timelines in combat zones are measured in hours, not days. KS45731. The bigger the crane, the slower it moves, and the harder it is to position. This Kamaz-based crane sits in the sweet spot between can lift what needs lifting, and can actually get between work sites without becoming a logistics problem itself. Multiple repair and construction tasks across a wide area demand cranes that spend more time working than traveling. KS3574M3 and KS3574M1. Two variants exist because engineering and logistics operations need different lift capacities for different tasks. The M3 handles heavier loads, the M1 prioritizes mobility. Having both means commanders can match crane capability to mission requirements, instead of using a sledgehammer when a regular hammer would work. Efficient engineering isn't about having the biggest equipment, it's about having the right equipment where you need it. PMP floating bridge system. Pontoon bridges have been solving the army meets river problem since Roman times, and the Soviet PMP system proves old solutions still work when done right. Variants like the PPS-84 and PMP-2M are still crossing rivers in combat, because floating bridges deploy in hours instead of days, get forces moving before the enemy can reinforce the far bank, and disappear just as quickly when you're done. Permanent bridges make great targets, pontoons you can pack up and move. PP-2005. Russia modernized their pontoon bridging by mounting the system on KMAZ 63501, trucks for faster deployment and better road mobility. River crossings are where advances stall and units get slaughtered if they're stuck on one bank too long. The PP-2005 cuts deployment time, which directly translates to fewer troops exposed during the most vulnerable phase of any river crossing operation. Speed saves lives. PP-91. One bridge means one crossing point, and one crossing point means one target for enemy artillery to zero in on. The PP-91 gives commanders multiple bridging options across a theater, spreading forces across several crossing sites instead of funneling everyone through a single choke point. Redundancy in bridging isn't about backup plans. It's about not putting all your forces in one place where a few accurate artillery rounds can stop an entire operation. Engineering, landing craft, and motorboats. Not every water crossing needs a bridge. Russia operates a fleet of small landing craft and motorboats specifically for moving personnel and equipment across rivers, when building a fixed crossing would take too long or turn your engineers into artillery targets. These craft handle reconnaissance teams, supply runs, troop movements, and equipment transfers across water obstacles without the commitment and exposure of pontoon bridges. They're flexible, harder to target than static crossings, and let you probe multiple crossing points instead of betting everything on one bridge location. Sometimes the best way across a river is the one that doesn't involve construction crews spending hours in the open making themselves obvious. Inflatable military dummies. Want the enemy wasting ammunition and reconnaissance assets on targets that don't exist? That's what these decoys do, simulating military vehicles and infrastructure to confuse enemy intelligence. Add the MKT-2P camouflage kit, and you've got fake assets that look real enough to draw fire away from what actually matters. TDA-2K. The Soviets built this smoke vehicle decades ago for creating smoke screens that conceal troop movements and operations, still serving in Russian forces because the basic mission hasn't changed. When you need to hide an entire formation from observation, you pump out smoke and hope it's thick enough. TDA-3. Russia modernized the smoke vehicle concept by mounting it on a KAMAZ 5350 chassis with RPZ-8H smoke field control equipment. Creating smoke screens in battle is old school tactics, meeting modern platforms, covering advances or retreats when you need concealment more than you need stealth. UTM-ADM. Decontamination vehicles exist for the nightmare scenario, where chemical or biological agents contaminate an area and someone has to clean it up. This is part of Russia's CBRN response equipment, designed for environments where everything that got exposed needs scrubbing before it kills whoever touches it. ARS-14. Built on a KAMAZ chassis for large-scale decontamination operations. When chemical or biological agents are in play, this vehicle is the difference between getting your people back in the fight or watching them become casualties from contamination. Nobody bothered to clean up properly. BPM-97. Reconnaissance means getting close enough to see what the enemy's doing without getting killed in the process. These armored reconnaissance vehicles give intelligence units the protection to operate where unarmored observers would last about 5 minutes. BRM-3K Rise. Information wins battles, but someone has to go get it first. This armored reconnaissance vehicle handles the dangerous work of gathering battlefield intelligence when the price of being wrong is getting your entire unit killed because nobody knew what was out there. BRM-1K. This Soviet-era armored reconnaissance vehicle is undergoing modernization after being produced in large numbers. The Cold War ended, but reconnaissance didn't, and platforms from that era can still do the job if you update the systems that matter. RKHM-6 Povoska. Someone has to drive into potentially contaminated areas and figure out if chemical or biological agents are present before troops walk into a death zone. Russia's replacing these with newer RKHM 8 to 9 vehicles based on Tiger and Typhoon platforms. But the mission hasn't changed. Find the poison before it finds you. 1V12M and 1V152. Artillery command reconnaissance vehicles coordinate fire missions and gather targeting data. Artillery without accurate targeting information is just expensive noise. These vehicles provide the eyes and coordination that make guns effective. PRP-4 and PRP-4A Argus, Soviet-era artillery reconnaissance vehicles that spot targets for artillery fire. With the Argus variant bringing modernized systems, guns are useless if they're shooting at nothing. And these platforms give artillery the targeting data that turns shells into effective fire missions. 1L269 Krasika 2. Mobile electronic warfare complexes jam enemy radar and communication systems. Disrupting enemy operations without firing a shot beats fighting them directly. And this platform makes enemy sensors and communications fail exactly when they need them most. ZTEL and related EW systems. Russia's got a whole family of mobile electronic warfare platforms that all do variations on the same essential job. Turn the enemy's radios into expensive paperweights, make their GPS tell lies, and blind their radar when they're trying to figure out what's coming at them. Win the electromagnetic spectrum, and the other side fights deaf, dumb, and blind. Lear 2 and Borisglebsk 2. Imagine trying to coordinate a combined arms operation when none of your radios work, and every order gets garbled or just disappears into static. That's what these mobile electronic warfare complexes do, carried by Tiger vehicles and other platforms. Jam enemy comms hard enough, and their command structure falls apart because battalion can't talk to company and company can't talk to platoon. RB341V Lear 3. This mobile electronic countermeasures complex uses Orlan 10 UAVs for communications, jamming, and signals intelligence. Put the jammer in the air, and suddenly you're disrupting enemy systems across a much wider area than any ground-based platform could cover. Psylocke and Bushprit, a $100 quadcopter, can spot your position and call in artillery that costs more than a house. That's the reality of modern combat, and that's why counter-drone systems went from nice to have to absolutely essential in about 5 years. These electronic warfare complexes knock drones out of the sky or jam their control links before some kid with a controller turns your position into coordinates. SKO-10 GGNA. Contaminated water has killed more soldiers throughout history than most weapon systems. An army that can't drink is an army that stops fighting, which is why these water treatment stations mounted on KMAZ 6350 or Ural 5323. Trucks turn whatever sketchy water source you found into something that won't put half your unit on their backs with dysentery. Moving on to armored trains, AMR. Russia looked at the 21st century battlefield and decided to bring back armored trains. Built in 2016 and retrofitted in 2022, the Amur is basically a moving fortress on rails, handling rear-line logistics. Yeah, everyone knows exactly where it can go, because trains only run on tracks. But when you need protected supply runs and the rails are still intact, sometimes 19th century solutions work in modern war by call. This armored train was built alongside the Amur in 2016, then upgraded for actual combat operations in 2022. It operates in active combat zones, providing both logistics and fire support, which means Russia mounted guns on a train and sent it to the front lines. The tactical limitations are obvious, it's literally on rails, but mobile artillery that can also haul supplies apparently still has value when your logistics are getting hammered. Volga. Built in 2022 specifically for anti-mine and anti-sabotage work, this armored train exists because rail lines make perfect targets for anyone wanting to disrupt logistics. Someone has to clear the tracks and make sure partisan groups aren't planting explosives. And apparently Russia decided an armored train was the answer instead of just using trucks that can, drive around obstacles. Yenisei. Russia built this one in 2022 for both rear support and frontline operations. And there are accusations they use materials sourced from Ukraine to build it. It handles logistics and provides fire support from a platform that telegraphs its exact route to anyone with a map, proving that sometimes the benefits of protected rail transport outweigh being the most predictable target on the battlefield. Moving on to artillery. Gvozdika. Mechanized units don't wait around for artillery support to catch up from 10 kilometers back. The Gvozdika solved that by mounting a 122mm howitzer on tracks, giving advancing armor and infantry their own fire support that moves with the formation. Self-sufficiency matters when you're pushing forward and calling for help isn't fast enough. Akatsia. Sometimes you need more punch than a 122mm can deliver. The Akatsia's 152mm gun demolishes hardened targets and suppresses positions that lighter artillery just annoys, with range that keeps crews safer while they're doing it. Jahzint S. Reaching out past 30 kilometers means you can engage enemy artillery, command posts, and logistics without pushing your guns into the danger zone. The Jahzint S extends your reach without extending your risk, letting crews hit deep targets from relatively safe positions. Mista. Russia actually modernized their tracked, self-propelled artillery instead of just keeping Soviet-era platforms limping along. The Mista brings fire, control, and automation that earlier guns never had, making artillery reliable enough for sustained operations. Instead of praying, the mechanics can keep systems from the 60s functional. Koalicja SV. Automated loading means no more crew exhaustion from manually handling shells during sustained fire missions. The Koalicja SV represents Russia's bet on faster fire rates with smaller crews, assuming they can make the automation work reliably in combat instead of just during carefully controlled tests. Malva. Road speed matters when you need to reposition between fire missions before counter-battery radar finds you. The Malva trades all-terrain mobility for platforms that move faster on highways and require less maintenance, built for conflicts that involve more paved roads than muddy fields. Pion. The Soviets built the biggest mobile artillery they could field, 203mm shells, over 40 kilometers of range, existing purely for missions where maximum firepower matters more than how long it takes to get into position or move between firing points. BM-21 Grad. You don't need to hit the target if you can hit everything near the target. The Grad dumps 4,100 22mm rockets on a grid square in 20 seconds, then drives away before anyone figures out where all that came from. Area denial through saturation make everywhere unsafe, instead of trying to precisely hit somewhere specific. Tornado G. Russia took the Grad's rapid-fire concept and added guidance systems that turned spray and pray into something resembling targeted strikes. The Tornado G keeps the saturation capability, but adds accuracy when you actually need to hit specific targets instead of just lighting up a grid square. Uragan. The Grad's bigger brother fires 220mm rockets that create the kind of devastation you need when suppressing an area means destroying everything in it, not just making it uncomfortable to occupy. Sultan Sepyok. Thermobaric weapons create pressure waves that kill everything in enclosed spaces. Urban combat and bunker clearing without sending troops inside first. It's brutal, effective, and completely indiscriminate about what's in the target area when the rockets arrive. Tosochka. The tracked TOS-1A kept getting spotted and targeted too easily. The Tosochka keeps the devastating thermobaric firepower, but mounts it on wheels for faster repositioning between salvos, reducing the window where counter-battery fire can find them. TOS-3 Drakon. Currently undergoing trials, this represents Russia doubling down on thermobaric weapons as their answer to fortified positions. The Drakon aims to be longer range, more mobile, or more lethal than earlier versions, probably all three if the design works as intended. BM-30 Smerch. 300mm rockets that reach 90 kilometers. The Smerch throws warheads the size of small cars at extreme ranges, giving commanders the ability to hit targets that conventional artillery can't touch without moving launchers anywhere near the danger zone. Tornado S Russia took the Smerch and asked, what happens when you add guidance to 300mm rockets? The answer is precision strikes at distances where earlier systems just hoped something important was in the impact zone. Extreme range meets actual accuracy. Sarma. Russia's newest 300mm launcher keeps pushing the envelope on range and firepower. The bet here is that overwhelming firepower at extreme distance still matters, even as precision weapons dominate the conversation about modern battlefields. Uragan 1M. Instead of hauling different launchers for different ranges and warhead sizes, Russia's designing one platform that handles 220 to 300mm rockets. Simplify logistics, give commanders flexibility to choose between range and payload depending on what the mission needs. Podnose. 82mm medium mortars fill the gap between what riflemen can carry and what requires dedicated artillery. Units get organic indirect fire without waiting for the big guns to show up. Lighter and more mobile than howitzers, but heavier than anything infantry wants to hump across rough terrain. Sani. High-angle fire, drop shells behind cover, and into defilade where direct fire weapons can't reach. The Sani's 120mm platform delivers the kind of suppression work that dislodges enemies from protected positions they thought were safe. Vasilek. This 82mm gun mortar does double duty. High-angle mortar fire for indirect targets, direct fire when something needs killing at point-blank range. It's not exceptional at either role, but flexibility matters when tactical situations change faster than you can swap weapons. Nona K. 120mm gun mortar that shoots like a mortar for indirect targets and like a gun for direct threats. Crews get options, instead of specialization, handling both roles without carrying separate weapons for each mission type. Nona SVK. Mount the Nona gun mortar on a self-propelled chassis, and you get mobile fire support that keeps up with mechanized units. Only 24 exist, making it specialized equipment for units that need 120mm firepower with wheels and protection instead of towed guns that slow everything down. Costa, another self-propelled 120mm gun mortar joining the family. Mechanized units need organic fire support that actually keeps pace with them, and Russia keeps building variants on this concept because the mission hasn't changed even as the platforms evolve. Phlox. This newer 120mm self-propelled gun mortar is in limited service, while Russia evaluates whether the design actually works in combat or just looks good on test ranges. Real operations have a way of exposing problems that controlled testing misses. Tyulpan. The Soviets built the biggest mobile mortar they could, 240mm monster designed for large-scale bombardments, where subtlety doesn't exist and maximum destruction is the entire point. Russia's towed artillery stockpile. Not every artillery unit needs to race across the battlefield, keeping pace with tanks. Towed guns trade mobility for simplicity. They're cheaper to build, cheaper to maintain, and they keep working, as long as you have shells and something to tow them with. Russia's got thousands of these platforms, ranging from 100mm anti-tank guns to 152mm howitzers sitting in stockpiles, some dating back decades. The newest design matters less than having functional guns when you need them, and towed artillery provides firepower for units that operate from more static positions, or don't justify the cost of self-propelled platforms. It's not glamorous, but wars get fought with what's available in quantity, not just what's cutting edge. Moving on to air defense, ZU-23-2. Soviet forces needed something cheap and portable that could throw enough 23mm rounds into the air to make low-flying aircraft reconsider their approach. This towed anti-aircraft gun does exactly that. It's simple, it's everywhere, and when you don't have guided missiles, rapid-fire guns are better than hoping small arms will bring down jets. AZPS-60. When the Soviets wanted heavier anti-aircraft fire than 23mm guns could deliver, they built this 57mm towed platform. The S-60 reaches higher and hits harder than lighter guns, giving units the ability to engage aircraft that stay outside the range of smaller calibers. ZSU-23-4 Shilka. Soviet designers mounted 4 23mm autocannons on a tracked chassis with radar fire control, creating mobile anti-aircraft coverage that could keep up with armored formations. The Shilka represented cutting-edge air defense in the 1960s. Now it's a Cold War relic that still works if nothing better is available. 9K-35 M3 Strela 10 M3. Short-range surface-to-air missiles give units organic air defense without requiring separate anti-aircraft artillery. The Strela 10 launches infrared-guided missiles at low-flying aircraft and helicopters, providing protection for formations that would otherwise be vulnerable to anything with wings. Tunguska. Russia combined radar-guided guns with infrared-guided missiles on a single platform because air threats come at different ranges and altitudes. The Tunguska handles everything from helicopters to fast jets, using guns for close targets and missiles for anything farther out that needs killing. 9K-33 OSA. Soviet mobile air defense needed platforms that can move with mechanized forces and engage aircraft without stopping. The OSA launches short-range missiles from a wheeled chassis, providing air defense that relocates as fast as the units it's protecting. Tor missile system. Medium-range air defense requires systems that can engage multiple targets simultaneously while staying mobile. The Tor tracks and engages aircraft with missiles that home on targets even after launch, letting crews fire and immediately acquire new threats instead of guiding one missile at a time. Buk missile system. When Soviet planners wanted medium-range air defense that could handle everything from helicopters to strategic bombers, they built the Buk. It launches semi-active radar-guided missiles that can engage targets at altitudes and ranges where shorter-range systems are useless, creating defensive bubbles around high-value assets. Almaz Ante S-300. Long-range surface-to-air missiles form the backbone of Russian strategic air defense, engaging aircraft and missiles at extreme ranges. The S-300 represents the kind of capability that makes hostile air forces plan entire missions around avoiding its engagement zone. Moving on to tactical ballistic missiles. FAF-360. Iran developed this short-range tactical ballistic missile, and Russia started receiving them when domestic production couldn't keep pace with demand. Artillery has range limits, and sometimes you need to hit targets 100 kilometers away with more punch than rockets can deliver. Ballistic missiles fill that gap between conventional artillery and strategic weapons. Hwasong 11A. North Korea's contribution to the things that make air defense planners nervous category. These short-range tactical ballistic missiles are harder to intercept than aircraft and faster than cruise missiles, giving them the ability to hit targets across the Korean Peninsula before defenders have much time to react. Russia's been fielding them because ballistic missiles don't care about air superiority. This Soviet-era tactical ballistic missile has been around since the Cold War, and about 50 remain in service because they still work. The Tochka is being replaced by more modern systems, but operational missiles beat newer designs that haven't been delivered yet. It launches conventional or special warheads at ranges beyond artillery, doing a job that still needs doing even if the platform's getting old. 9K 720 Iskander-M. Russia's answer to the question, what if we made tactical ballistic missiles actually accurate? The Iskander-M combines range, precision, and mobility in a platform that can launch both ballistic missiles and cruise missiles, depending on the target. It's mobile enough to shoot and relocate before counter battery systems figure out where the launch came from, making it significantly harder to kill than static launch sites. Moving on to animals. Donkeys. These stubborn pack animals go places vehicles can't reach and eat whatever vegetation is available. Russian forces started using them for cargo delivery in early 2025 because donkeys don't need fuel, spare parts, or paved roads, just food, water, and the patience to deal with an animal that stops moving when it decides it's done for the day. Horses. Faster than donkeys, stronger than soldiers, and capable of carrying loads across terrain that stops trucks cold. Cavalry died a century ago, but horses as logistics assets never went away because they solve problems that internal combustion engines can't. Mobility through mud, snow, and mountains without requiring supply chains beyond local fodder. Camels. International media captured Russian soldiers riding camels in February 2025, proving that modern warfare sometimes circles back to solutions that armies used in ancient Persia. Ukrainian forces later rescued a camel from a captured Russian position, adding what might be the most unexpected logistics asset to appear in a European conflict since World War I. Moving on to attack aircraft. MiG-29. The affordable air superiority fighter that proved you don't need to spend, like America, to build something capable. High maneuverability, decent radar, weapons systems that work. The MiG-29 gave Soviet and now Russian forces a dogfighter they could actually afford to field in real numbers. It's not cutting edge anymore, but when you need air superiority on a budget, the 29 still shows up and does the job. MiG-31, Mach 2.8. That's the number that matters when you're trying to intercept American bombers and reconnaissance aircraft across thousands of kilometers of Russian airspace. The MiG-31 is pure speed and range, carrying long-range missiles designed to kill targets before they ever get close. It's not built for dogfighting. It's built for catching things that don't want to be caught. MiG-35. Take everything that made the MiG-29 a capable fighter, add 21st century avionics and weapon systems, and you get the 35. This is what happens when you modernize a proven airframe with technology that actually works reliably, instead of just bolting on incremental upgrades and hoping for the best. Soviet agility meets modern sensors. Su-27. Pilots who've flown both Western and Russian fighters will tell you the flanker handles like nothing else in the sky. The Su-27 matched the F-15's range and payload while adding maneuverability that still impresses decades after it first flew. Soviet designers set out to build something genuinely competitive with American air power, and they succeeded. Su-30. Take the Su-27 airframe and turn it into a genuine multi-role platform capable of both air superiority and ground attack. The Su-30 gives Russian forces a fighter that can handle air combat and strike missions without needing separate specialized aircraft, making it versatile enough for operations where you can't predict what missions will come up. Su-34. Russia needed a long-range strike aircraft that could survive modern air defenses and deliver precision weapons deep behind enemy lines. The Su-34 is their answer, a side-by-side cockpit fighter-bomber that flies like a fighter but carries bomb loads like a dedicated attack aircraft, giving crews comfort on long missions while bringing serious firepower to targets that conventional bombers can't reach. Su-35. This is what happens when you take the proven Su-27 design and upgrade everything that matters. The Su-35 brings improved engines, modern avionics, and thrust vectoring that makes it one of the most maneuverable fighters in the world, representing Russia's best conventional fourth-generation fighter before they started fielding stealth platforms. Su-57. Russia's first attempt at a fifth-generation stealth fighter combines reduced radar signature with supercruise and advanced sensors. The Su-57 represents their answer to American F-22s and F-35s, though production numbers remain limited and questions about its actual stealth capabilities persist among Western analysts. Su-24, low altitude supersonic penetration into enemy territory in all weather conditions. That's the mission the Fencer was built for. Side-by-side seating like a bomber crew, terrain following radar that lets you hug the ground at Mach speed, and weapons designed for precision strikes when you're threading through enemy air defenses. For decades, this was how Soviet strike aviation planned to survive long enough to deliver its payload. Su-25. The frogfoot is what happens when you decide close air support aircraft need to survive getting shot. Armored cockpit, redundant systems, weapons that work on targets actively shooting back at you. It operates low where pilots can actually see what they're hitting, trading speed and sophistication for the kind of protection that brings crews home after flying through ground fire that would shred most jets. Su-33. Russia operates carrier aviation despite having exactly one operational aircraft carrier, which tells you something about their priorities. The Su-33 adapts the flanker airframe for carrier operations, with reinforced landing gear, folding wings, and all the structural beefing up required to survive repeated carrier landings. It brings genuine air superiority capability to Russian naval aviation, though most of these jets spend more time at shore bases than at sea, simply because Russia doesn't have the carrier fleet to keep them deployed where they were designed to operate. MiG-29K. Russia's answer to needing a cheaper carrier fighter that can handle both air combat and strike missions. The navalized MiG-29 folds its wings, strengthens its structure for the violence of carrier landings, and packs anti-ship missiles. It's more affordable to operate than the heavier Su-33, which matters when your carrier aviation budget is limited. Su-25 UTG. Learning to land on a moving deck without killing yourself requires specialized training, and that's exactly what this carrier trainer provides. Russia took the heavily armored Su-25 and modified it for teaching pilots carrier operations. It retains enough attack capability to be useful in combat if things get desperate and every available aircraft needs to fight. Tu-22M. The backfire reaches speeds over Mach 1.8 and launches cruise missiles from standoff ranges, giving Russia a supersonic bomber that can penetrate air defenses better than subsonic platforms. It's faster than a B-52, more practical than maintaining fleets of strategic intercontinental bombers, and capable of delivering both nuclear and conventional weapons at ranges that keep the aircraft relatively safe. Tu-95. This turboprop strategic bomber has been flying since 1956, making it older than most of the aircrew operating it. The Tu-95 launches cruise missiles from standoff range rather than penetrating modern air defenses directly, proving that sometimes the right answer is keeping proven platforms flying instead of spending billions on replacements. Tu-160. When Soviet designers wanted a strategic bomber that could fly supersonic with variable sweep wings and massive payload capacity, they built the Blackjack. The Tu-160 represents the pinnacle of Russian bomber design, fast, powerful, and capable of carrying both nuclear and conventional weapons across intercontinental ranges, though maintaining these complex aircraft costs a fortune. MiG-41. Russia's planning to replace the MiG-31 interceptor with something even faster and more capable, supposedly reaching near space altitudes and hypersonic speeds. The MiG-41 exists mostly in press releases and ambitious design proposals right now, representing what Russian aerospace engineers think the future of interception looks like, assuming they can actually build it and afford to produce it in meaningful numbers. Su-75, checkmate. Russia unveiled this single-engine fifth-generation fighter as their export-focused stealth platform, promising F-35 capability at a fraction of the price. The checkmate looks impressive in promotional materials, but is still waiting for its first flight and actual production, making it more aspirational than operational at this point. Moving on to support aircraft. N-12. Built in 1959 and still hauling freight across Russia and former Soviet states. The N-12 survives because it goes places modern jets won't touch. Rough strips, minimal infrastructure, conditions that would ground anything sophisticated. Simple turboprop design means it keeps flying when there's no parts. Supply chain and maintenance has to happen with whatever tools are available. Durability beats advancement when you're operating where proper airports don't exist. And 24, connecting remote areas across the Soviet Union required something that could land at small airfields nobody bothered to properly pave. The An-24 handled that mission since 1962. Twin turboprops and rough field capability, keeping isolated regions linked to civilization when roads were non-existent and weather was terrible. Regional connectivity through aircraft that refused to quit. And 26. The 24 was good, but troops and cargo needed faster loading through a rear ramp instead of side doors. The An-26 became the tactical transport that could handle austere fields and quick turnarounds, loading everything from paratroopers to supplies in environments where runway meant flattish ground that looks solid enough. And 72. Those engines mounted on top of the wings aren't a design quirk, they're problem solving. Put the intakes high, and suddenly you can operate from unprepared runways without ingesting rocks, dirt, and debris that would destroy conventional engines. The AN-72 brings jet cargo capacity to places where landing safely requires creative engineering solutions. And 124. The Antonov Bureau decided to build one of the world's largest cargo aircraft, and the result swallows loads that nothing else can handle. Outsized military equipment, industrial machinery, entire helicopters. The AN-124's cargo bay makes other heavy lifters look modest. It proved essential for both military logistics and the kind of commercial freight that's too big for normal aircraft. And 140. Ukraine developed this smaller regional transport in 2002 for cargo flights and short-range missions. The AN-140 fills the gap between light aircraft and heavy transports, providing economical lift for operations that don't need the capacity or cost of larger platforms. And 148. Ukraine introduced this medium-range jet transport in 2009 to fill the gap between turboprops that are too slow and heavy lifters that are overkill. Better fuel efficiency than older Soviet jets, cargo capacity that handles serious freight without requiring massive runways, and passenger configurations when you need to move people instead of equipment. It's the right size tool for missions where speed matters, but you don't need strategic airlift capability. Il-18. This Soviet turboprop has been flying since 1958, making it older than most of the infrastructure it services. The Il-18 keeps operating in regions where newer aircraft would be impractical to maintain, proving that longevity sometimes matters more than technology when you're working in places where spare parts arrive by the same aircraft you're trying to fix. Il-62. 4 engines, intercontinental range, built in 1967 when the Soviets wanted their own long-range jet transport for passenger flights and VIP transport. Most are retired now as newer, more fuel-efficient aircraft replace a fleet that was getting expensive to keep flying. But for decades, this was how the Soviet Union moved people across distances that made other aircraft stop for fuel. Il-76. This heavy lifter has been hauling military cargo, humanitarian aid, and outsized equipment since 1974. The Il-76 swallows loads that would require multiple flights on smaller aircraft and operates from airfields that would make modern jet crews nervous. It's the platform that shows up when ground transport can't reach the destination and the cargo's too big or too urgent for anything else. Tu-134, the superstar of regional Soviet aviation, connecting secondary cities across the Soviet Union and Warsaw Pact from 1967 onward. Most are long retired as routes modernized, and passengers stopped tolerating cramped Soviet-era cabins, but this twin-engine jet kept the empire connected when alternatives meant flying through Moscow or not flying at all. Tu-154. That distinctive tri-engine layout made the Tu-154 instantly recognizable across Soviet airspace from 1970 onward. It handled everything from military transport to Aeroflot passenger service for decades, becoming so ubiquitous that entire generations of Soviet citizens never flew on anything else. Safety concerns and brutal operating costs pushed most toward retirement. But for a long time, this was simply what medium-range jet transport looked like in the Soviet Union. L-410, Turbolet. Czechoslovakia built this small turboprop transport in 1970 for regional operations and training. The L-410 keeps flying in roles where you need something bigger than a light aircraft, but don't need the capacity or expense of medium transports, with production still continuing for specialized applications. And 30, satellites orbit on fixed schedules and can't reposition when something interesting happens. Aircraft with cameras and sensors can loiter, circle back, and provide real-time battlefield observation exactly when commanders need it. The AN-30 is a modified AN-24 dedicated to aerial reconnaissance and monitoring, proving that sometimes the best intelligence comes from flying lower and staying flexible rather than relying on space-based assets that pass overhead once every few hours. A 50. That distinctive radar dome mounted on top gives it away immediately. This is Russia's airborne early warning and control platform. The A-50 gets radar high enough to see over the horizon and coordinates air operations from altitude, letting ground controllers track threats before they arrive and direct fighters to intercept them. It's the Soviet answer to AWACS, though how well those radars perform against modern stealth aircraft is a question nobody's definitively answered in actual combat. Il-20. Intelligence gathering doesn't stop just because you're flying. So this modified Il-18 carries electronic reconnaissance equipment for signals intelligence. The Il-20 loiters near areas of interest, collecting communications and radar emissions, providing the kind of intelligence that satellites can't always capture. Il-22. Battlefield coordination needs airborne command posts that can survive in contested environments. The Il-22 provides strategic communications and coordination capabilities, keeping command structures functional when ground facilities are threatened or destroyed. Il-78. Aerial refueling extends the range and endurance of combat aircraft that would otherwise have to land for fuel. The Il-78 tanker keeps fighters and bombers airborne longer, providing the logistics support that turns short-range aircraft into strategic assets capable of extended operations. Il-80. The Doomsday Plane. When nuclear war turns ground command centers into radioactive craters, and the chain of command needs to survive long enough to coordinate what's left, this airborne command post keeps operating. The Il-80 carries secure communications and command capability designed to function when everything on the ground is destroyed or compromised. It's the aircraft you hope never leaves the hangar for its actual mission, because if it does, that means someone launched weapons that end civilizations. But you can't afford not to have it, because deterrence only works if the other side knows your command structure survives their first strike. 2-2-14. Russia commissioned this specialized command and control platform in 2013 because their older reconnaissance and coordination aircraft couldn't handle modern digital warfare's data requirements. The 2-2-14 brings updated avionics and systems to missions where real-time information flow determines whether operations succeed or fall apart. Command aircraft aren't glamorous, but they're the difference between coordinated operations and expensive chaos. B-12. An amphibious patrol aircraft that's been flying maritime missions since 1961. The ability to land on water means search and rescue operations don't end when someone goes down at sea, and coastal patrol missions can extend into areas where emergency landings require water instead of runways. Anti-submarine warfare, from an aircraft that can actually land on the ocean it's patrolling, adds flexibility that land-based platforms can't match, even if the design's showing its age after 6 decades of service. B-200. Jet power meets amphibious capability in this versatile platform that handles firefighting, search and rescue, and maritime patrol. The B-200 operates from water or conventional runways, providing flexibility for missions ranging from forest fires to coastal surveillance. Il-38. Anti-submarine warfare requires aircraft that can stay airborne for hours, hunting submarines with sensors and weapons. The Il-38 has been tracking underwater threats since 1967, carrying sonobuoys and torpedoes for missions, where finding and killing submarines matters more than speed or comfort. 2-1-42. Patrolling the Pacific or Atlantic for submarines requires aircraft that can stay airborne for 12+ hours, covering thousands of kilometers of empty ocean looking for threats that don't want to be found. The 2-1-42 delivers that intercontinental endurance with sensors and weapons designed to detect and engage submarines across strategic maritime areas, where shorter-range patrol aircraft would need multiple aircraft and aerial refueling just to maintain coverage. Diamond DA-42. Russia bought Austrian twin-engine trainers for flight instruction, which tells you something about priorities. The DA-42 is simple, reliable, and efficient, exactly what you want when teaching fundamentals. Students focus on learning to fly rather than managing complex systems, and instructors don't waste time troubleshooting temperamental aircraft instead of actually teaching. Sometimes the best training platform is the one that just works. L-39, Albatros. Generations of pilots learned to fly jets in this Czechoslovakian trainer from the 70s. The L-39 is still in widespread service because it nailed the basics. Reliable enough to keep training schedules running, affordable enough to log real flight hours without burning through budgets, and effective at preparing pilots for the jump to frontline fighters. It's not sexy, but it's done the job for 50 years. Yak-130. Training pilots doesn't require sacrificing all combat capability, so this jet trainer doubles as a light attack aircraft. The Yak-130 prepares pilots for advanced fighters while retaining enough weapons capability to be useful in permissive environments, making it more versatile than dedicated trainers that can only teach. Alexeyev Orlan. Ground effect vehicles fly just above the water surface, using the cushion of air trapped beneath them for lift. The Orlan Ekranoplan, expected around 2027, represents attempts to revive this concept for high-speed maritime transport, though whether it proves practical or remains an engineering curiosity is still an open question. Beriev A-100. The A-50's radar and electronics date back to Soviet times, and age shows when you're trying to track modern stealth aircraft and coordinate complex air operations. The A-100 is supposed to fix that with contemporary sensors and command systems, with service entry planned around 2026. Whether development stays on track and funding keeps flowing is another question entirely. Il-78M90A. Aerial refueling turns short-range fighters into long-range strikers and lets bombers loiter for hours instead of minutes. This tanker variant brings modern engines and updated systems to extend combat aircraft range and endurance. Entering development in 2017 with expected service by 2021. More efficient fuel transfer means more aircraft staying airborne longer. Il-212. The An-26 and An-72 are ancient, and replacing them requires something modern that doesn't drink fuel, like Soviet-era turboprops. Development started in 2019, with service expected by 2021, aiming to bring updated technology and better performance to tactical transport missions that still need doing even as the platforms age out. Yak-152. You don't teach someone to drive in a Ferrari, and you don't teach someone to fly in a Su-35. The Yak-152 handles entry-level flight instruction with 150 on order, giving student pilots a simple, reliable platform to learn fundamentals before they graduate to anything complicated enough to kill them. It's unglamorous work, but every fighter pilot started somewhere like this. Beriev, a 60. Mounting lasers on aircraft to shoot down missiles sounds like science fiction, but someone has to figure out if it actually works. The A-60 is Russia's flying laboratory for directed energy weapons research, testing whether the concept translates from theory into something operational, or just burns through budgets, proving it's harder than it looks. Experimental testbeds either validate revolutionary technology or expensive failures. Time will tell which one this becomes. Moving on to helicopters. Ka-27, 28, and 29. That distinctive coaxial rotor design, two main rotors spinning opposite directions, stacked on top of each other, eliminates the tail rotor entirely. Kamov's been building helicopters this way since the 50s, and these anti-submarine warfare platforms prove the concept works brilliantly for ship operations where deck space is tight. They've been hunting submarines since 1982 with sonobuoys and torpedoes, compact enough to operate from ships where conventional helicopters wouldn't fit. Ka-31. Radar mounted on a helicopter instead of a fixed-wing aircraft seems weird until you realize ships can't launch AWACS planes. The Ka-31 carries rotating radar for airborne surveillance, providing over-the-horizon detection from naval vessels and shore bases. It gives fleets early warning of incoming threats when surface radar can't see far enough, turning helicopters into flying radar stations. Ka-52. Side-by-side seating is rare on attack helicopters, but the Alligator does it anyway. That wide fuselage houses two pilots sitting next to each other instead of tandem, supposedly improving coordination when you're coordinating anti-armor strikes and close support missions. Combined with Kamov's signature coaxial rotors, it's one of the most visually distinctive attack helicopters. Flying different doesn't mean worse. It just means Russian engineers solve problems their own way. Ka-52K. Operating attack helicopters from aircraft carriers requires more than just bolting on folding blades. The K model adapts the Alligator for naval aviation with reinforced structure to handle the violence of carrier landings, systems designed to survive saltwater corrosion, and all the modifications needed for deck operation. It operates from Russia's single aircraft carrier, which means most of these specialized naval attack helicopters spend more time at shore bases than at sea. Ka-226. Urban combat and mountain operations turn conventional helicopters into struggling targets. The Ka-226 brings Kamov's coaxial rotor design to a lighter, more maneuverable package that excels in tight spaces and high altitudes where bigger helicopters lose performance. It handles transport, reconnaissance, and utility missions in environments where maneuverability matters more than payload capacity. Kazan Ansat. Russia built this utility helicopter domestically when relying on imported platforms started looking like a bad long-term strategy. The Ansat entered service in 2013, handling transport, reconnaissance, and medical evacuation across both military and civilian roles. It's not revolutionary, but it's Russian-made, which matters when international politics can cut off your spare parts supply overnight. Me-2. This light transport helicopter has been flying since 1965, which means it's older than most of the pilots flying it. The Me-2 should have been retired decades ago, but it keeps operating in roles where newer helicopters aren't available or aren't worth the expense. Survival through sheer persistence, and the fact that simple designs refuse to die even when they probably should. Me-8 and Mi-17. If there's one helicopter that defines Russian and Soviet aviation, it's this transport platform. The Mi-8 family has been hauling troops, cargo, and everything else since 1967, operating in every environment imaginable and refusing to be replaced because nothing else combines its capacity, reliability, and ability to take punishment. Generations of soldiers have ridden in these, and they're still flying because the basic design got so much right. Mi-24. Soviet designers looked at attack helicopters and decided they should also carry troops, creating the heavily armed Hind, a flying tank that combines serious firepower with troop transport capability. Western helicopters never attempted this dual role, but the Mi-24 proved you could armor a helicopter enough to survive ground fire while still delivering 8 fully equipped soldiers into hot landing zones. It's not subtle, but watching one operate makes you understand why crews call it the crocodile. Mi-26. When you absolutely need to move the heaviest loads by helicopter, this is the only option. The Mi-26 is the world's heaviest production helicopter, capable of lifting cargo that would require multiple trips from anything else, making it essential for operations where ground transport can't reach and fixed-wing aircraft can't land. Mi-28. Modern attack helicopter design produced this platform specifically for anti-armor and close support mission. The Mi-28 brings day and night capability with advanced sensors and weapons, representing what Russian attack aviation looks like when it's not trying to carry troops at the same time. Mi-38. This medium-lift helicopter entered service in 2019 as Russia's answer to aging Soviet-era transports that were becoming maintenance nightmares. The 38 carries up to 30 troops or 5 tons of cargo across both military and civilian operations, designed specifically to handle Russian climates, from Arctic cold to desert heat. It's built entirely with domestic components, which matters when international sanctions can cut off spare parts and force entire fleets to sit grounded, waiting for supplies that never arrive. AS-350 and AS-355. Not every mission requires Russian-built heavy military helicopters. These French Eurocopter platforms handle light utility work, transport, surveillance, reconnaissance, in situations where proven commercial designs make more sense than developing domestic alternatives from scratch. They're agile, reliable, and available now instead of years down the development pipeline. Buying foreign equipment isn't always about capability gaps. Sometimes it's just practical math when the mission needs light helicopters, and domestic production is focused on combat platforms. Ka-60. Development continues on this transport and utility helicopter designed to provide flexible solutions for military operations. The Ka-60 represents future Russian rotorcraft capability once it moves from development into actual service, assuming funding and technical challenges get resolved. Moving on to naval vessels, Kirov class. Nobody builds battlecruisers anymore. They're expensive, complex, require massive crews, and modern naval warfare moved towards smaller, distributed platforms decades ago. Russia didn't get that memo. The Kirov class represents Cold War thinking at its most ambitious. 25,000-ton nuclear-powered monsters packed with enough anti-ship missiles, long-range guns, and air defense systems to fight an entire fleet by themselves. These floating arsenals dwarf almost everything else on the ocean, and watching one at sea makes you understand why Western navies spent so much time figuring out how to kill them. Pyotr Veliky still serves as the Northern Fleet's flagship, a statement of power that costs a fortune to maintain, but commands respect simply by existing. Admiral Nakhimov is undergoing extensive refits to drag 1980s technology into relevance for 21st century warfare, because Russia's not ready to give up on the concept of battlecruisers, even if the rest of the world already did. They're anachronisms, they're impractical, and they're absolutely imposing when they show up in your operational area. Slava class. American carrier battle groups dominated the Cold War seas, and Soviet naval planners obsessed over how to kill them. The answer was these 11,000-ton guided missile cruisers built specifically as carrier hunters. Long-range anti-ship missiles that could reach out and touch carriers before their aircraft launched, layered air defense systems to survive the inevitable counterstrike, and enough firepower to cripple a capital ship if they got the shot. Ships serving in the Northern and Pacific fleets aren't designed for patrol work or showing the flag. They're purpose-built for the kind of major fleet engagement where destroying the enemy's most valuable asset justifies risking your own cruiser. The doctrine assumes high-intensity naval warfare where both sides accept losses, which tells you everything about Soviet naval thinking in that era. Udaloy class. Submarines are the ocean's ambush predators, and surface fleets are useless if they can't detect and kill what's hunting them from below. The Udaloy class solves that problem as dedicated anti-submarine warfare destroyers at 7,500 tons. They combine torpedoes for killing submarines, anti-ship missiles for surface threats, and air defense systems for protecting themselves while they're focused on what's underwater. Hunting submarines requires specialized sensors, weapons, and tactics that general-purpose warships can't match, which is why the Northern and Pacific fleets operate these multi-role destroyers, specifically for fleet protection against underwater threats. Surface ships make impressive displays of power, but submarines win wars if nobody's hunting them effectively. Krivak class. These 3,000-ton frigates from the 70s are still floating around the Black Sea because Russia can't afford to replace everything at once. Ships like Ladny and Pytlavy have been upgraded so many times, the original crews wouldn't recognize half the systems, handling anti-submarine and anti-surface warfare with equipment that's been patched, modernized, and jury-rigged to stay relevant. They weren't meant to still be operational 50 years later, but Cold War hulls keep working when newer platforms cost money nobody wants to spend. Neustrashimy class. Commissioned in 1990, right as the Soviet Union collapsed, which pretty much sums up their entire existence. Neustrashimy and Yaroslav Mudry are that awkward generation between Soviet and Russian design. Better than what came before, not quite modern by today's standards. They operate in the Baltic Fleet doing anti-air and anti-surface work. Naval orphans from a country that doesn't exist anymore, serving a fleet that can't afford to retire them yet. Admiral Grigorovich class. Finally, modern Russian frigates that weren't designed during the Cold War. These 3,860-ton platforms, commissioned in 2016, actually incorporate current technology instead of retrofitted Soviet systems. Admiral Grigorovich, Admiral Essen, and Admiral Makarov primarily work the Black Sea Fleet, but deploy to the Baltic and Mediterranean when operations need ships with systems that work reliably without constant maintenance. Not revolutionary, just competent, which matters more than you'd think. Gepard class. The Caspian Sea is basically a big lake, and deploying massive warships there makes about as much sense as bringing a battleship to a pond. The Gepard class scales down to 1,800 tons, giving ships like Tatarstan and Dagestan enough capability for air defense and patrol work without the logistical nightmare of maintaining fleet assets in waters where they'd be overkill anyway. Admiral Gorshkov class. Russia's most modern frigates displaced 5,400 tons and entered service between 2018 and 2023 with advanced weaponry and radar systems. Ships like Admiral Flota, Sovetskogo, Soyuza, Gorshkov, Admiral Flota Kasatonov, and Admiral Golovko operate in the Northern Fleet, representing current Russian thinking on what multi-role surface combatants should look like with 21st century technology. Grisha class. Hunting submarines in coastal waters doesn't require expensive destroyers when you can build smaller platforms that do the job for a fraction of the cost. These 1,000-ton corvettes from the 80s pack advance sonar and torpedoes into hulls designed specifically for anti-submarine warfare in littoral environments. Ships like Kalmsk and Muromets are still operating in the Black Sea and Pacific fleets, some wearing fresh camouflage schemes after getting relocated as operational requirements shifted. They're small, specialized, and cheaper to operate than the destroyers that would otherwise have to handle coastal ASW missions. Nanuchka class. Fast missile boats that can threaten capital ships without costing what capital ships cost. That's the entire philosophy behind these 730-ton corvettes. Pack enough anti-ship missiles onto a small, fast platform, and suddenly you've got coastal defense capability that makes enemy surface combatants nervous without bankrupting your naval budget. Ships like Smerch and Rasvier still serve across Pacific, Northern, and Baltic fleets, though after decades of service, some vessels have status that's best described as uncertain. Tarantula class. 540 tons, anti-ship missiles, and speed. The Tarantula class exists to hit enemy ships and disappear before return fire arrives. They're fast attack corvettes built around the shoot and scoot concept. Get in close, launch missiles, get out before the target's escorts. Figure out where the hell that came from. Vessels like R-60, R-261, and Dmitrovgrad operate across Black Sea, Pacific, and Baltic fleets, providing coastal strike capability without the vulnerability that comes with larger platforms that can't hide as easily. Parcham class. Mine warfare is unglamorous, dangerous work that nobody thinks about until mines start sinking ships. These 950-ton corvettes handle both mine warfare and coastal defense in the Baltic Fleet, with ships like Urengoy and Kazanets doing missions that larger warships aren't designed or equipped to perform. Somebody has to clear mines and patrol coastal waters where bigger vessels would be wasted, and the Parcham class handles those essential but rarely celebrated roles. Bora class. Over 50 knots. That's the number that matters when you're building fast attack vessels designed to hit hard and disappear. These 1,050-ton corvettes mount powerful missile systems on platforms fast enough to close range, launch, and be gone before enemy defenses fully react. Bora and Samum operate in the Black Sea Fleet. representing Soviet attempts to combine speed with firepower for strike missions, where sustained combat capability matters less than getting in fast, hitting hard, and surviving to do it again. Buyan class. The Caspian flotilla doesn't need billion-dollar destroyers patrolling what's essentially a large inland lake. These 500-ton corvettes like Astrakhan, Volgodonsk, and Makhachkala handle multiple roles at a fraction of the cost, operating primarily in the Caspian and Black Sea. The Buyan M variant, like Grad Sviazk, brings upgraded systems to the proven design, showing that sometimes iterative improvement beats revolutionary redesign. Staragushchi class. 2,200 tons of modern Russian corvette engineering. Ships like Staragushchi, Subrzytelny, and Soversheny serve the Baltic and Pacific fleets as multi-role platforms handling anti-submarine warfare, air defense, and surface combat with advanced weaponry that earlier corvettes couldn't dream of carrying. They represent current Russian thinking on versatile small combatants, capable enough to matter, small enough to build in useful numbers. Gremyashi class. The Staragushchi class was good, but Russia decided they could do better. At 2,500 tons, Gremyashi operating in the Pacific Fleet brings enhanced sensors and weapon systems that push corvette capabilities into territory, previously requiring larger ships. It's the evolution of the platform, showing how corvette design keeps expanding what small combatants can accomplish. Karakurt class. 800 tons moving fast with anti-ship and anti-submarine capability. Ships like Mytishi, Sovetsk, and Odinsovo work the Baltic and Black Sea fleets, with newer additions like Amur and Tucha deploying to strategic regions where their combination of size and firepower makes them useful without the expense of maintaining larger vessels. Small doesn't mean helpless when you're carrying the right weapons. Tapir class. Amphibious assault means driving tanks directly onto hostile beaches, and that requires ships willing to beach themselves and drop ramps under fire. These 4,900-ton landing ships like Orsk and Nikolai Vilkov do exactly that for Black Sea and Pacific fleets, carrying troops and heavy equipment for operations where securing ports first isn't an option. They're built to put armor on beaches whether anyone's ready for it or not. Rapucha class. 4,800 tons sits in that sweet spot where you're carrying meaningful loads of vehicles and troops without the cost of massive assault ships. Olenigorsky Gornyak, Kondopoga, and Georgy Pobedonosets prove the design works across various fleets, doing amphibious operations that require more than small craft can handle, but don't justify deploying your largest vessels. Sometimes the best platform is simply the one you can afford to build in quantity. Ivan Gren class. 6,600 tons brings serious amphibious capability for moving heavy cargo, tanks, and troops onto contested beaches. Ivan Gren and Pyotr Morganov operate in Black Sea and Northern fleets with a kind of capacity that makes large-scale amphibious operations feasible without requiring an entire fleet of smaller landing ships. They're what modern Russian amphibious doctrine looks like when you want capability that actually scales. Zubr class. Over 60 knots while carrying tanks and troops. The Zubr doesn't sneak onto beaches, it screams across the water at speeds that make traditional landing craft look stationary. Evgeny Kosheshkov and Mordovia give the Baltic Fleet assault capabilities built around getting there faster than defenders can organize effective resistance. Speed changes the entire equation in amphibious warfare when you're moving faster than the enemy can react. Cerna class. 100 tons handles the smaller insertions and cargo transport missions where massive landing ships would be overkill. Ships like D-67, Alexei Sukhanov, and D-144 work Caspian, Baltic, and Black Sea operations, remaining active despite combat losses, because they fill roles where you need more than a small boat, but less than a full assault ship. Not every landing requires the entire fleet showing up. Dugon class. Assault boats are too small, landing ships are too big, and somewhere in between, you need craft that can actually handle medium-scale deployments. The Dugon class fills that gap in the Caspian and Baltic, handling operations where tactical requirements fall between the extremes of tiny insertion craft and full amphibious vessels. Ondetra class. Speed and shallow draft wind in coastal operations, where getting there matters more than what you're carrying. These landing craft access beaches and shorelines that deeper-hulled vessels can't reach, trading cargo capacity for the ability to operate in waters where conventional landing craft would be scraping bottom. BK-16 class. Some beaches aren't accessible by anything you'd call a proper ship. These craft work in waters so shallow that even small landing craft run aground, putting troops and light equipment onto shorelines, where navigable is a generous description. The Black Sea and Northern Fleet deploy them for insertions where the objective isn't reachable any other way. BK-18 class basically the BK-16 with marginally more capacity. Operating primarily in the Black Sea Fleet, they handle the same shallow water missions with just enough extra capability to make a difference when those few additional tons of cargo or personnel turn a marginal operation into a feasible one. Project 22-160. Most maritime operations don't involve combat. Anti-piracy, border patrol, search and rescue. These missions need ships, just not warships. The Black Sea Fleet deploys these offshore patrol vessels for the routine work that comprises the vast majority of naval operations, providing presence without tying up combat platforms for missions that don't require them. Project 23-550. The Northern Fleet operates in waters that'll kill you before the enemy does. Arctic conditions where distance and weather make everything harder. Ivan Pappinen and her sisters are 6,800-ton ice-capable patrol ships built to dominate those frozen hell zones, scheduled to commission in 2025. When everyone else's ships are stuck in port waiting out a storm, these things are out there maintaining Russian presence where it matters most. Dragunov class. The Baltic needs eyes everywhere, but you can't afford massive vessels for every mile of coastline. Enter these 139-ton workhorses like Nakimovets and Suvorovets, small enough to be cheap, capable enough to run anti-submarine warfare and surveillance missions that keep NATO guessing. They're the unglamorous backbone of territorial defense. Raptor class. Sometimes you don't need firepower, you need speed and presence. These 43-ton patrol boats, like Maxim Panin, haul ass around the Baltic, Black Sea, and Pacific doing reconnaissance and rapid response. Not built for slugging matches, built for showing up fast, making their presence known, and getting out before things escalate. Shmel class. The Caspian's shallow waters mean big ships don't matter. At 77 tons, boats like AK-209 go where others can't reach. Rivers, coastlines, tight spaces where draft and agility win over size. They're the Caspian flotilla's answer to guerrilla naval warfare. Yurza M-class. Heavily armed, despite displacing only 54 tons, these patrol boats protect Russian waters from surface and underwater threats. Boats like Razboynik and Nyaznik previously served Ukrainian Navy before transferring to the Black Sea Fleet, bringing serious firepower to platforms small enough for coastal operations. Natya class. Mine warfare requires dedicated vessels that can detect and clear mines without detonating them in the process. These 800-ton countermeasures, ships like Ivan Golubets and Valentin Pikul, operate in Black Sea and Pacific fleets, doing the unglamorous work of making water safe for naval operations that everyone else takes for granted. Alexandrit class. Modern mine-sweeping technology comes in these 620-ton vessels equipped with advanced systems for finding and neutralizing mines. Ships like Alexander Obukov and Georgy Kurbatov deploy in Baltic and Black Sea fleets, ensuring safe passage for Russian naval assets through waters where mines could cripple operations. Sonia class. Mines don't care if the water's deep or shallow, but larger mine-sweeping vessels do. At 460 tons, these ships go where the bigger countermeasure ships can't fit, with vessels like Leonid Sobolev and Novicheboksarsk handling Baltic and Northern Fleet mine warfare in waters measured in meters rather than fathoms. Support vessels. Combat ships get the headlines, but navies run on logistics, icebreakers, hospital ships, transports, floating cranes, workshops, salvage platforms, tenders, tugs, fleet oilers, survey vessels, and training ships. Russia operates approximately 370 vessels across roughly 74 different classes and types, representing everything that keeps warships supplied, repaired, moved, refueled, and operational when the actual fighting ships can't do any of that themselves. Moving on to submarines, Delta IV class. Imagine spending months underwater, knowing your submarine carries enough firepower to end civilization. That's been the reality for Delta IV crews since the mid-80s, operating under the Northern Fleet as part of Russia's sea-based nuclear deterrent. These ballistic missile submarines stay hidden in the depths, with R-29 RM missiles, doing a job that's defined by never having to actually do it. The entire concept of submarine-launched ballistic missiles depends on remaining undetected while carrying weapons you desperately hope never get the launch order. Delta IVs have been shouldering that responsibility for nearly 40 years. Bore class. Russia's answer to aging Soviet ballistic missile submarines arrived in 2013, built around the Bulava missile system, with stealth characteristics that earlier boats couldn't match. The Bore A subclass followed in 2020 with enhanced quieting and advanced systems, creating the current backbone of Russia's sea-based nuclear deterrent. They're quieter than what came before, more capable, and represent billions invested in weapons platforms whose success is measured by never firing their missiles in anger. That's the paradox of strategic deterrence. You build the most capable weapons possible while hoping they remain permanently unused. Oscar II class. Soviet submarine designers built these nuclear-powered cruise missile platforms with one specific mission: kill American carrier battle groups. Commissioned between 88 and 92, they pack P-700 Granite missiles capable of striking naval and land targets at ranges where carrier air wings become a problem for the other guy. The Oscar IIs still serve in Northern and Pacific fleets because the mission hasn't changed, even if the Cold War ended. Carrier groups remain high-value targets, and submarines designed to hunt them remain operationally relevant, regardless of what decade you're operating in. Yasen class. Russia's most advanced attack submarine, combines cruise missile strikes with intelligence gathering in one stealthy package. Introduced in 2014, the Yasen represents what modern nuclear attack submarines look like when you start from current technology instead of upgrading Soviet designs. The Yasen M variant arrived in 2021 with further improvements in missile capability and sonar systems, pushing the platform even further. These boats hunt enemy submarines, strike land targets, gather intelligence, and do it all while remaining as undetectable as current technology allows. That's the benchmark for what attack submarines should accomplish. Sierra II class. Titanium hulls cost a fortune, but let submarines dive deeper and move faster than steel boats ever could. These nuclear-powered attack submarines commissioned in the early 90s sit mostly in reserve or awaiting repairs now, representing expensive Soviet engineering that proved too costly to maintain in the numbers originally planned. Victor III class. Anti-submarine and anti-surface warfare drove the design of these nuclear-powered attack submarines that arrived in the 90s with advanced sonar and torpedoes. Several boats are getting refits to extend their operational lives because replacing Cold War submarines is expensive, and boats that still work are better than boats that don't exist yet. Akula class. Soviet submarine designers built these nuclear-powered attack boats for anti-submarine warfare and offensive strikes, creating two variants in the process. The original Akula I-like K317 Pantera set the standard, while the improved Akula II brought better sonar and enhanced stealth, with boats like K419, Kuzbass, all continuing to provide strategic advantage decades after their 90s introduction. Kilo class. Diesel-electric submarines earned the nickname Black Hole from Western navies because these boats disappear so completely when running on batteries. Introduced in '86, the Kilo class handles anti-ship and anti-submarine warfare with quiet operation that makes them genuinely difficult to detect, with variants like the 877 EKM still patrolling across multiple fleets. Improved Kilo class. Take everything that made the original Kilo effective and update it with modern systems and improved performance. These 636.3 variants started arriving in the mid-2010s, heavily deploying to the Black Sea Fleet while maintaining the stealth reputation that made the Kilo class dangerous, with boats seeing action in Mediterranean and Baltic operations. Lada class. Russia's attempting to build a modern conventional submarine that can eventually replace the aging Kilo fleet. Kronstadt arrived in 2024 with advanced stealth and reduced noise signatures, representing what Russian diesel-electric submarines should look like in the 21st century, assuming production continues and the promised capabilities actually materialize in service. Sarov class. Nuclear power meets special purpose missions in this submarine commissioned in 2008, designed to carry out high priority tasks, including potentially deploying Poseidon nuclear weapons. Sarov operates in the Northern Fleet as part of Russia's deep sea operations and strategic capabilities that blur the line between conventional and nuclear warfare. Paltis class. Deep diving motherships exist to deploy smaller, special purpose submarines for missions that require going deeper than normal boats can handle. AS-21 and AS-35, commissioned in the early 90s, operate from the Northern Fleet, providing platforms for underwater reconnaissance and specialized operations in extreme depths where most submarines can't reach. Cachalot class. Even smaller than the Paltis boats, these deep diving submarines like AS-13 and AS-15 arrived in the 80s and 90s for specialized reconnaissance and research missions. Operating with the Northern Fleet, they've reportedly worked alongside larger vessels like Belgorod in operations that don't make it into public documentation. Oscar II class. Take a massive cruise missile submarine, strip out the missiles, and redesign it into something even more specialized. Belgorod emerged from this conversion in 2022, capable of carrying Poseidon nuclear torpedoes and acting as a mothership for smaller submarines, creating a platform for capabilities that most navies don't even attempt to develop. Lashcharik class. Deep sea operations require submarines that can handle extreme depths for missions nobody discusses publicly. AS-31, known as Losheric, operated until a major fire in 2019 killed 14 crew members and incapacitated the boat. After extensive repairs, it's expected to resume sea trials by 2025, returning to Northern Fleet operations that remain classified. Moving on to unmanned ground vehicles. MRK-46. Mines kill indiscriminately, so clearing them with unmanned vehicles beats having engineers do it on their hands and knees. The MRK-46 combines reconnaissance with mine detection and neutralization, doing dangerous work without putting human operators in blast radius. Chemical weapons create zones nobody wants to enter without knowing what's contaminating the area. These unmanned vehicles detect hazardous substances and clear mines in environments where protective gear alone isn't enough to keep soldiers safe, handling tasks where exposure could mean casualties, Scarab and Sphere. Landmines don't care who steps on them, so these unmanned vehicles navigate hazardous areas, detecting and removing mines while gathering intelligence. They go where terrain or enemy presence makes manned reconnaissance too risky, turning side missions into remote operations. Capitan. Similar mission, different platform, the Capitan handles reconnaissance and mine clearing without exposing human operators to blast risks. Russian military planners clearly decided that building multiple unmanned mine clearing platforms beats losing engineers to explosives. Scorpion M. Kamikaze drones work on the ground too, and this multi-role unmanned vehicle can be remotely controlled for high-risk missions potentially carrying explosives to target enemy assets. When the mission requires getting close enough to guarantee hits, and survival isn't part of the plan, remote-controlled explosives start making tactical sense. Lyagushka. 30 kilograms of explosives traveling at 20 kilometers per hour sounds slow until you realize it's a remotely controlled bomb that operators can drive straight into enemy equipment or personnel. The Lyagushka represents warfare where expendable robots replace expendable soldiers for missions that end in explosions. Cobra 1600. Advanced reconnaissance and mine clearing capabilities come in this platform designed for surveying terrain and neutralizing mines more efficiently than earlier systems. Incremental improvements in unmanned vehicles might not sound exciting, but they save lives when the alternative is humans doing the same work. Uran 6. Demining requires specialized equipment that can survive triggering mines while clearing them, and the Uran 6 was built specifically for that mission. It removes explosive threats to ensure troop and civilian safety, with at least one loss during operations, proving that even unmanned systems face risks in minefields. Procod 1. Sometimes mine clearing requires integrated systems rather than single vehicles. The Procod 1 combines a robotic BMR-3MA tracked vehicle with a KAMAZ-based command vehicle, creating complete demining capability for clearing paths so larger forces can advance without detonating buried explosives. Combat support and patrol missions don't always need manned vehicles, when unmanned platforms can provide ground reconnaissance in dangerous environments. Operating autonomously or remotely controlled, the MRK-3 extends commanders' awareness without extending their casualty lists. Uran 14. Military engineering needs machines that can handle construction, repair, and potentially mine clearing across diverse tasks. The Uran 14 provides that multi-function capability, serving engineering operations that would otherwise require multiple specialized platforms or vulnerable human crews. Moving on to unmanned aerial vehicles, Orlan 10. The Orlan 10 is a key part of Russian reconnaissance operations, with over 1,000 of these drones deployed from KMAZ trucks or Tiger vehicles. It can carry up to 4 VOG-17 fragmentation grenades for light attack missions. But here's the tough reality. At least 239 have been shot down in Ukraine. A stark reminder that even relatively inexpensive drones have their limits, especially when the losses pile up faster than you can replace them. Inferno. First-person view drones changed modern warfare by putting pilots behind screens instead of in cockpits. This FPV drone arms itself with GP-25 grenades and gets flown directly into targets by operators who learn their skills playing video games, bringing gaming reflexes to actual combat missions. Night Witch. Precision strike capability arrived in August 2024 with this multi-rotor hexacopter carrying 4 munitions. The Night Witch handles targeted attacks on enemy equipment or personnel with a kind of accuracy that makes expensive guided missiles seem wasteful for small targets. Forepost R. Reconnaissance drones need endurance and sensors more than speed, so this platform focuses on surveillance missions. At least 6 variants have been lost in Ukraine. which sounds modest until you consider these are the reconnaissance assets that guide everything else Russia throws at targets. Kronstadt, Orion, Innokodets. Tactical Operations got this dedicated platform tested over the Ukraine border in December 2021. Capable of both reconnaissance and strike missions, the Orion represents Russian attempts to field drones comparable to what Western militaries have been operating for years. Mohajer 6. When domestic drone production can't meet operational demands, you buy from whoever's selling. Russia purchased these Iranian-origin combat drones for use during the 2022 invasion, arming them with various guided munitions, including GAM-1, GAM-5, and Sadid precision-guided weapons. Vetter. Artificial intelligence meets kamikaze drones in this FPV platform, produced at 3,000 units per month. The Vetter 8, 10, and 13 versions bring AI-assisted targeting to tactical operations, deploying technology that sounds like science fiction in drones, cheap enough to be expendable. Moving on to small arms. Makarov PM. When the Soviets designed the Makarov PM, they weren't aiming for complexity. They just wanted something that worked. This 9mm semi-auto has been the standard sidearm for decades because it's simple, reliable, and doesn't require a gunsmith to keep it running. It's not flashy or high-tech, but it gets the job done, which is exactly what you want in a military sidearm. PB, take that Makarov and add a suppressor, and you get the PB. This version is built for special forces who need to keep their presence as quiet as possible. The 9mm still hits hard, but now you can operate without giving away your position. It's a trade-off. Suppressors can affect reliability, but when you need to stay undetected, it's a worthwhile risk. Stekhin APS. The Stekhin APS was made for close quarters combat, especially in tight spaces like vehicles or cockpits. This machine pistol runs on the same 9mm, but it has the option to switch to full auto. It's a powerful tool, though firing full auto from a handgun takes some serious control and a bit of luck when it comes to accuracy. Still, for those who need it, it's a solid choice. PSS Silent Pistol. If you need something truly quiet, the PSS Silent Pistol is the one. This pistol uses special 7.62 by 42 rounds that burn the propellant inside the casing, which means it's almost completely silent when fired. In covert ops, staying quiet is critical, and this pistol gives you that advantage without sacrificing effectiveness. Makarov PMM. The Makarov PMM keeps everything the same as the classic Makarov, same 9mm round, same basic design, but with a bigger magazine, 12 rounds instead of 8. It's a small update to a design that was already reliable, giving soldiers a bit more firepower without losing what made the Makarov so effective. MP443 Grok. By 2003, Russia knew it was time to modernize their sidearm, so they introduced the Grok. This 9x19 parabellum pistol is more ergonomic, more accurate, and offers a significant upgrade over the Makarov. While it's a great pistol, getting it into widespread service has been slower than expected. Changing a soldier's weapon is always a tough sell, and old habits die hard. GSH 18. Another option that came up during the search for a Makarov replacement is the GSH 18. This 9x19 pistol offers more firepower, an updated design, and higher capacity. It's a solid piece of gear, but getting the Russian military to switch from the Makarov to anything else has been a challenge. Despite its advantages, it hasn't fully replaced the older models in the field yet. When Spetsnaz units needed a sidearm that could handle more than just your average target, Russian designers stepped up with the SR-1 Vektor. Built around the 9mm Gyroza round, this pistol was designed to punch through body armor, something most handguns just can't do. The Vektor isn't just about putting holes in paper. It's about making sure that when the mission calls for taking out protected targets, it gets the job done. In special ops, where standard pistols would be useless, this one makes sure it doesn't miss the mark. Next up is the SR-2 Udav, another 9mm Gyroza pistol looking to take the place of the Makarov. Designed to handle modern threats like armored targets, the Udav offers more power and reliability compared to the old standbys. Sure, it's still caught up in the usual red tape of military procurement, but once it's fully adopted, it could give Russian forces a serious edge in the field. When you need a sidearm that can do more than just fire rounds, the Udav might just be the answer. In close quarters combat, everything's about speed and reliability. That's where the PP-19 Vityaz comes in. Spetsnaz units use this submachine gun for urban ops, where the 9mm parabellum round is perfect for short-range action. It's tough as nails, built to withstand the brutal conditions of urban warfare, and keeps working even when more delicate weapons would fail. When it's go time in the city, the Vityaz is the one you want by your side. Compact, fast, and versatile. The PP2000 is designed for urban and covert operations where size matters just as much as power. This little 9mm submachine gun packs a punch, but stays small enough for easy concealment and rapid deployment. Special forces and law enforcement love it for missions that require quick reactions, like clearing rooms or moving through tight spaces, where every second counts and every shot needs to hit its target. When you need a shotgun, that's not just for shooting clay pigeons. The KS-23 is a whole different beast. Originally designed with anti-aircraft cannon barrels, it's a 23mm powerhouse that's used by Spetsnaz for crowd control and breaching. This thing fires shells originally meant for shooting down planes, and it packs enough punch to make anyone think twice. It's the kind of weapon you bring in when you want to make a big statement and a big hole in whatever's in front of you. Kalashnikov doesn't just make rifles, they make shotguns too. The Saigo 1-2 brings that same legendary reliability to the 12-gauge shotgun with a semi-automatic platform that keeps you in the fight longer. The box magazine means fewer reloads, which is exactly what Spetsnaz units need when they're clearing rooms or taking on enemies at close range. No pump action here, just solid, consistent firepower when it counts. Mosin Nagant M 1891. This bolt-action rifle served the Russian Empire, fought through both world wars, and somehow ended up back in service during the 2022 invasion when conscripts needed rifles and warehouses still had millions in storage. The 7.62x54 Mosin proves that desperate times bring desperate measures, even if those measures involve issuing rifles older than your great-grandfather. Sometimes size matters, and sometimes it doesn't. The AKS-74U is the answer when you need something compact enough for tight spaces, but you still want the reliability of an AK. Designed for vehicle crews and close quarters work, this little carbine dials back the range and muzzle velocity of the AK-74 to make it more usable in cramped urban environments. It's the kind of weapon you need when a full-length rifle is more of a liability than an asset, but you still want that AK toughness. SR3 Vickr. If you've ever wanted to make sure your rounds hit hard without giving away your position, the SR3 Vickr is your go-to. This 9mm carbine runs subsonic ammo, meaning no supersonic crack to give you away, just pure, quiet firepower. It's perfect for close combat, where stealth can be the difference between life and death. But don't let the quietness fool you. It still packs enough punch to pierce armor, making it a dangerous tool for any special forces unit operating in urban environments. Soviet engineers were known for pushing boundaries, and the AK-971 was no exception. With a balanced recoil system that helps control muzzle climb during automatic fire, this rifle proved that you could have smooth, controlled bursts without sacrificing power. It's chambered in 5.45, and while its adoption was limited, it's a testament to Russian engineering, innovative, but sometimes a little too ahead of its time. It did see action in the Ratnik program though, showing that even the wildest ideas can find their place. The AK-74 was a game changer when it dropped in the 70s, moving away from the classic 7.62 to 5.45. The result? A rifle that was lighter, more accurate, and easier to control. It quickly became the Soviet standard throughout the 80s. And despite being pushed out by newer models, its durability and widespread use made it iconic, even if today, it's slowly being phased out as the next generation of Kalashnikovs takes over. If you're a paratrooper or part of a vehicle crew, you want something compact without losing firepower. The AKS-74 was made with that in mind, offering a folding stock that shrinks the profile without sacrificing the full-length barrel. This 5.45 AK variant is still around in specialized units, serving those who need the flexibility to fold it up and stash it away, but still rely on a rifle that's never going to let them down when things get heated. The AN-94 was designed to make a statement that you could innovate even with an assault rifle. This one came with a 2-round burst mechanism, giving you precision at 5.45 velocities. It was a cool idea in theory, faster, more accurate fire, though in practice, its complexity limited its use. Spetsnaz units might have taken it for specialized ops, but it never hit widespread adoption. Sometimes, even the most innovative designs just don't mesh with how things need to work in the field. The AKM brought more power to the table than the original AK-47, but it still had that same rugged, no-nonsense design. With 7.62 ammo, it packed more punch than its little brother, and that made it perfect for situations where stopping power outweighed lighter, faster rounds. It's still in use today, particularly by naval infantry and special forces, who need that heavy firepower and don't mind the extra weight. AKMS. If you want an AKM but need to pack it into a smaller space, the AKMS is your answer. This version folds up, making it more compact for the Special Forces and Naval Infantry, who don't need a full-length rifle, but want the firepower that only a 7.62 round can provide. Often equipped with a suppressor for stealth, the AKMS gives those on covert ops the ability to hit hard without making a sound. The AS-VAL is one of those weapons that was made for one thing: staying under the radar. This 9mm assault rifle is designed from the ground up for suppressed fire, using subsonic ammo to eliminate both the noise of the action and the supersonic crack of the bullet. In close quarters combat, where stealth is key and failure means mission failure, the AS-VAL is the weapon of choice for special forces who need to stay quiet but still do some serious damage. The AK-74M took the original AK-74 and modernized it for the 21st century. Side rails, folding stocks, and a host of other upgrades made this version the standard for Russian forces in the early 2000s. Millions of soldiers know this rifle like the back of their hand. It's reliable, it's tough, and it's been the workhorse of the Russian military for over 2 decades, getting the job done no matter where in the world that might be. Sometimes, instead of reinventing the wheel, you just need to put a few new tires on it. The AK-74M UUK kit upgrades the existing AK-74M with better ergonomics, new dust covers, and accessory rails. It's a simple fix that makes a good rifle even better, bringing it closer to modern standards without having to replace the whole fleet. It's a smart, cost-effective way to keep an older model relevant without tossing it aside. The AK-12 marked a new era of modernization with the Ratnik program, combining everything the older Kalashnikovs didn't have: modularity, improved ergonomics, and overall versatility. This rifle was designed to meet the needs of modern Russian forces, blending the durability of the AK platform with the kind of features you'd expect from rifles used by Western militaries. The AK-12 is the next step forward for Russia's elite units. AK-103. Sometimes the old designs just need a little updating, and this is a perfect example. This 7.62 version is a modernized AKM, designed for a new generation of Russian military operations. It's got the stopping power of the older AKs, but with a more refined build, making it perfect for situations where hitting power is more important than the lighter, flatter, shooting 5.45 rounds. This rifle is built for the grunt who needs to hit hard. AK-15, building on the AK-103, the AK-15 brings the same 7.62 round with modern upgrades, including enhanced ergonomics and improved handling. This rifle is the new standard for Russian forces, blending that old-school Kalashnikov firepower with the features soldiers need today. It's powerful, precise, and built to last, just like every other rifle in the AK family. RPK-74M. In any infantry squad, you need someone to provide suppressive fire, and that's where the RPK-74M comes in. Built on the AK-74 platform, this light machine gun uses the same 5.45 round, but offers sustained fire without the weight of a general-purpose machine gun. It's all about mobility, providing the fire support your team needs, without slowing you down in the heat of battle. RPL-20. When you're out on patrol with your squad, you don't always have the luxury of setting up a machine gun nest. That's where the RPL-20 comes in. This 5.45 light machine gun is portable, but still delivers suppressive fire like you'd expect from a bigger weapon. It sits right in that sweet spot between a rifle and a full-on machine gun. It's what you need when you're on the move and can't afford to lug around the weight of a crew-served weapon, but still need that extra firepower to keep enemies at bay while your team maneuvers into position. The PKM is one of those weapons you can count on to never let you down. Designed by the Soviets decades ago, this 7.62 general-purpose machine gun has been the backbone of infantry squads, mounted on vehicles, and everything in between, whether it's laying down suppressive fire from the ground or providing heavy support from a vehicle. Even as newer designs like the Pecheneg begin to replace it, the PKM continues to serve a testament to the enduring power of simple, reliable designs. When you need a machine gun that just keeps firing, the PKM is still the answer. PKP, Pecheneg. Upgrading the PKM wasn't just about adding more rounds or more power, it was about improving what was already great. The PKP Pecheneg keeps the same 7.62 chambering, but focuses on enhancing accuracy and reliability. This is the machine gun that stepped into the spotlight, slowly replacing its older cousin in Russian service. If you've been following the Russo-Ukrainian war, you know this weapon's role. providing that sustained fire capability where it's needed most. The Pecheneg doesn't just make noise, it makes a difference on the battlefield. Sometimes you just need something big, really big. The D6K brings 12.7 mil firepower to the fight, and it's been doing just that since the Soviet era. Originally designed as an anti-aircraft weapon, it's found a permanent home as a heavy machine gun that brings unmatched firepower to the ground. Whether it's suppressing infantry or providing that extra punch when the enemy's dug in, the D6K proves that when you need firepower, going bigger is never a bad choice. NSV. The NSV is the weapon that defined Soviet heavy machine gun power for decades. Chambered in 12.7 mil, it's the kind of firepower that can level a building or cut down anything in its path. It served as the standard until it began to be replaced by the Cord in the late 90s. But even today, it's still a common sight on the battlefield. Why? Because the NSV doesn't just bring the heat, it brings the kind of durability that only comes from decades of reliable service. The Cord hit the scene in 1998 and immediately made its mark as the new heavy machine gun of choice. While the NSV was still doing its job, the Cord brought some improvements in both performance and versatility. This 12.7 mil platform is about more than just raw firepower. It's about having a weapon that can adapt to various situations, from infantry support to vehicle mounts. While the NSV is still a staple, the Cord is the future, even if it's taking its time to completely replace its predecessor across the board. VSS Ventores. In the world of suppressed weapons, most are just quiet. The VSS Ventores is something else entirely. It's silent. This 9mm rifle is built for Russian special forces, designed to keep gunfire as discreet as possible while still delivering pinpoint accuracy. Integral suppression makes it a truly stealthy option for close to medium range engagements, where every shot matters, but getting caught means mission failure. When you need to eliminate a target without a sound, the VSS Ventures is the one to trust. The Dragunov was a game changer for Soviet forces, giving infantry the ability to take long-range shots with precision. The 7.62 SVD was built for squad-level marksman support, giving soldiers an edge in engagements where accuracy mattered more than speed. Over the years, the SVD became the go-to rifle for designated marksmen, and while it's been updated with the SVDM for improved accuracy, the core design remains unchanged. This rifle is a classic for a reason. It works, it's reliable, and it's stood the test of time. SV98. For snipers who need absolute precision, the SV98 is the weapon of choice. This 7.62 bolt-action rifle is designed for long-range engagements where every shot counts. It's not the fastest, but it makes up for that with extreme accuracy, and that's why it's used in military and counterterrorism operations, where precision matters more than speed. If you're tasked with making that one shot from a distance, the SV98 is the rifle you want in your hands. 5000. When you need to reach out and touch something at extreme range, the Orsis T5000 is your go-to. This bolt-action rifle, chambered in .338 Lapua Magnum, is all about precision. While the SV98 is great for long shots, the T5000 takes it to the next level, pushing the limits of what's possible in terms of distance and accuracy. This rifle is quickly replacing older systems for snipers who need to consistently make those shots at extreme ranges, whether in combat or specialized operations. Not every sniper needs a mass-produced rifle. Some need something truly custom. The bespoke Gunraptor Tactical is a small-batch, high-precision weapon made for elite units who demand the best. With a .338 Lapua Magnum chambering, this rifle offers incredible accuracy at ranges far beyond what standard-issue weapons can achieve. If you're going into an operation where every shot counts, and you can't afford a miss, this rifle gives you the best chance to succeed. Lobayev Sniper Rifle. Snipers don't just shoot, they make every shot count, often from distances that would make most other rifles seem obsolete. The Lobayev Sniper Rifle was built with that kind of precision in mind. The DXL-5 model offers Russian snipers the flexibility to choose between .338 Lapua Magnum or the larger 12.7mm Russian cartridge, both of which are designed for extreme long-range engagements. These are weapons that turn a shooter into a threat from distances measured in kilometers, not meters. When you're tasked with eliminating a target from a range so far away that others can barely spot it, this is the kind of rifle you want on your side. The ASVK isn't a weapon for everyday use. It's designed for one thing, making sure that long-range engagements with enemy equipment and vehicles are decisive. Chambered in 12.7mm, This anti-material rifle allows Russian forces to break through hardened targets from extreme distances. The ASVK isn't about making a lot of noise. It's about making sure your shot counts. The modernized ASVK MK Core variant amps up the performance even further, offering a more reliable tool for missions where you're out of sight and beyond the enemy's reach. OSV 96. When you need to neutralize tough targets and go through barriers, the OSV 96 delivers the kind of firepower that goes through armor like it's paper. Russian Spetsnaz units rely on this 12.7mm rifle for counter-sniper work and anti-material operations, where ordinary rifles fall short. This rifle doesn't just punch through, it destroys. Whether you're taking out vehicles or making sure an enemy sniper doesn't make it out of his hiding spot, the OSV 96 ensures your target doesn't stand a chance, no matter what's in the way. SPG-9. Sometimes you don't need a full artillery piece to knock out a fortified position. The SPG-9 recoilless rifle is built to give infantry a way to pack serious firepower without slowing them down. This 73mm platform is light enough to be carried into the fight, yet powerful enough to bring down structures and disable vehicles. It's that perfect middle ground, offering more than a rifle, but without the heavy weight of larger, towed weapons. It's for soldiers who need firepower on the move, ready to answer the call when you can't afford to wait for a heavier solution. GP-25, 30, and 34. These underslung grenade launchers give Russian infantry the versatility to take on a range of targets without needing an entirely separate weapon. They turn your standard rifle into a dual-purpose tool. Need to hit a bunker or suppress a group of enemies? Just switch to the launcher, and you've got it covered. This design makes it possible for infantry units to adapt on the fly, carrying only one weapon while gaining the firepower of a much heavier system. GM-94. If you're in a close quarters battle and a single grenade launcher won't cut it, the GM-94 is the tool you need. With its ability to fire multiple grenades in quick succession, this 43mm platform gives Russian special forces the edge when you need to keep up the pressure on an enemy, especially in urban or confined spaces. It's about maintaining momentum, not just getting a single shot off and waiting for the next opportunity. When the enemy is dug in, the GM-94 is there to remind them that they can't hide for long. RG-6, for those times when you can't afford to slow down and you need to fire multiple grenades without breaking a sweat, the RG-6 and RG-6G30 revolving grenade launchers come into play. These 40mm systems give you the firepower of an automatic grenade launcher, but with the added bonus of speed. Instead of one shot and a wait, these launchers allow for rapid-fire suppressive tactics, overwhelming enemy positions with volume. When you need to lock down an area and make sure the enemy stays in their holes, these revolving launchers give you that sustained, steady barrage that won't stop until you say so. The AGS-17 is about more than just blasting grenades downrange. It's about controlling the battlefield. This 30mm automatic grenade launcher lets you lay down a steady stream of grenades at a rapid rate, creating a wall of fire that enemies simply can't ignore. Whether it's clearing out enemy infantry or dealing with light vehicles, the AGS-17 allows crews to dominate an area, preventing enemies from advancing or getting comfortable. It's an infantry game changer, giving troops the power to deny entire zones with a steady barrage. Portability and accuracy don't always go hand in hand, but the AGS-30 changes that. This modernized 30mm automatic grenade launcher takes the foundation of the AGS-17 and refines it, making it lighter, more accurate, and easier to deploy. It's the go-to for troops who need the punch of a grenade launcher, but without the heavy weight slowing them down. The AGS-30 is about flexibility, letting Russian forces engage targets accurately while still being able to move fast and keep up with the pace of combat. In a world where explosive power is often the answer, the AGS-40 Balkan takes it up a notch. This 40mm automatic grenade launcher is replacing both the AGS-17 and AGS-30 with a bigger, better option that doesn't just offer more power, it also delivers improved overall performance. The AGS-40 is currently in testing, but early signs point to it becoming the next go-to tool for Russian forces, who need a weapon that's reliable, potent, and efficient. Bigger grenades, better results, sometimes more firepower is exactly what you need to tip the scales in your favor. The RPG-7 isn't just a weapon, it's a symbol of asymmetric warfare. This 40mm rocket-propelled grenade launcher, first designed by the Soviets, remains one of the most widely used and effective anti-tank weapons worldwide. It's not complicated, but that's the beauty of it. Simple to use, effective, and inexpensive, the RPG-7 has become a staple for guerrilla fighters and conventional forces alike. Whether you're taking down tanks or fortifications, this launcher is all about getting the job done without needing specialized training or high-end ammunition. Sometimes, a disposable weapon is exactly what you need. The RPG-18 is a single-shot 64mm launcher that's designed to be carried by infantry when quick anti-tank fire is needed. Lightweight and easy to carry, it's perfect for soldiers who need something fast, effective, and simple. The RPG-18 sacrifices reusability for ease of use, but in combat, that's often all you need, something to get the job done in the moment without slowing you down. If the RPG-18 is about simplicity, the RPG-22 ups the ante with a bit more firepower. This 72.5mm disposable launcher is perfect for when you need to hit a harder target, like light armor, but don't want the hassle of carrying a more complex system. It's the same easy-to-use concept as the RPG-18, but with a larger round that makes it more suitable for tougher targets. When the enemy is wearing armor that the smaller launchers won't get through, the RPG-22 is there to make sure you've got the firepower to stop them. Like the RPG-22, the RPG-26 is a 72.5mm launcher designed for a specific niche, lighter armor that needs more punch than the RPG-18 can offer, but doesn't require the complexity of reusable systems. Why does Russia field so many similar systems? Because flexibility matters. And sometimes having a lot of options is better than being locked into one solution. The RPG-26 provides yet another tool in the infantry toolbox, letting soldiers adapt to the ever-changing demands of the battlefield. When the RPG-27 came onto the scene, it wasn't messing around. With a 105mm warhead, this disposable launcher was made for a specific purpose, punching through heavier armor that smaller calibers just can't handle. It's the kind of tool you grab when lighter options aren't enough to take down a modern tank. This one-shot wonder is all about delivering a single, decisive blow when you need to break through the kind of defenses that turn a regular RPG into an underwhelming option. What makes the RPG-29 stand out? It's all in the tandem charge warhead. The first charge triggers reactive armor, and then the second charge punches through, clearing the way for the main warhead. This is the weapon designed to keep tank crews up at night, knowing that no matter how they prepare, their armor is still vulnerable. This reusable launcher has been a workhorse for Russian forces, giving infantry the kind of anti-tank firepower that can actually challenge modern armor and fortified positions with confidence. RPG-28, when the enemy's got the best armor out there, sometimes you need to go bigger. The RPG-28 ups the ante with a 125mm warhead designed specifically to defeat the heaviest tank armor in use today. This isn't about skirting around the issue, it's about taking a shot and ensuring the job gets done, no matter how thick the armor is. It's a one-shot solution to a big problem, and it's there when you need to eliminate that hulking armored threat that can turn the tide of battle. RPG-30. When tanks start deploying active protection systems, traditional RPGs get trickier. Enter the RPG-30. This launcher isn't just about hitting the tank, it's about tricking those defenses. The first round fires a decoy, drawing the active protection system's fire, while the real warhead follows behind, completely unimpeded. This is a system built to keep pace with modern technology, giving infantry a fighting chance against tanks that might have thought they were untouchable. RPG-32. Versatility is the name of the game with the RPG-32. This 105mm launcher is reusable and designed to handle whatever threats come your way, whether it's armored vehicles or softer targets. It's a do-it-all platform that gives infantry the flexibility to face anything that might pop up on the battlefield. No need to carry multiple systems when one weapon can handle it all, whether you're taking out a tank or targeting a fortified position. The MROA isn't your standard grenade launcher, it's about heat and blast. This 72.5mm thermobaric warhead creates explosive overpressure that can devastate personnel and light vehicles, producing effects that go beyond what traditional fragmentation grenades can achieve. When you're dealing with confined spaces, like bunkers or trenches, this is the grenade that gets the job done, creating conditions where there's no room to hide from the blast. If you're clearing bunkers or trenches, you don't want a simple grenade, you want something that guarantees destruction. The RPO-A Schmel is a 93mm thermobaric launcher designed to turn fortified positions into kill zones. When this warhead detonates, it's not just about blowing through walls. It's about turning everything inside into a deadly, hot mess. This is the kind of weapon that ensures those holding up behind walls are going nowhere. The 9 M111F missile system has been one of Russia's most reliable wire-guided anti-tank weapons. It's simple, effective, and packs a punch with its 120mm missile, allowing operators to steer the missile right into their target. Even though it's an older system, it has stood the test of time, proving that when a system works, it doesn't need to be reinvented. It's a favorite of infantry units who need precision and reliability without all the fancy tech that comes with newer platforms. Scaling up to 135mm, the Concourse M missile system is designed to take on the toughest of armored targets. This wire-guided missile doesn't just deal with light or medium armor, it's built for modern tanks, the kind that have reactive armor and advanced defenses. For Russian forces, the Concourse M remains one of the go-to solutions for engaging tanks at long ranges, proving that even with modern advancements, this system still gets the job done when things get heavy. When infantry needs to carry anti-tank missiles but can't afford the weight of larger systems, the Medi comes into play. This 94mm wire-guided missile system hits the sweet spot between power and portability. It gives Russian forces the ability to threaten armored vehicles without weighing down the soldier carrying it. It's a practical solution that gets the job done in situations where heavier, vehicle-mounted missiles are just too much. With the Metis M, Russian forces take the original Metis system and enhance it, improving range and performance. This 130mm system keeps the wire-guided concept but offers more capability, making it even more effective against modern tanks. It's not a radical change, it's an evolution of a proven system that continues to see use in specialized infantry operations, offering incremental improvements that give soldiers an edge without overcomplicating the design. The Cornet takes things up a notch with its beam riding guidance system, ditching the wires for a more advanced way to lock onto targets. This 152mm missile has the power to deal with modern tanks. And it doesn't stop there, it can also take on low-flying aircraft like helicopters. The Cornet is versatile, giving infantry the ability to engage both armor and aerial targets, making it a serious multi-role threat on the battlefield. Sometimes, your infantry needs to play the role of air defense, and that's where the Strela 3 comes in. This 75mm man-portable missile system is designed for taking out low-flying helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft. It's a vital tool for infantry units who can't rely on vehicle-mounted air defense systems. If you're out in the field and an enemy helicopter is buzzing your position, the Strela 3 gives you a fighting chance to knock it out of the sky. The Igla is one of those weapons that's been around for a long time, but it's proven to be indispensable. This 72mm shoulder-fired missile is designed to engage both helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft, providing infantry with a way to defend themselves against air threats without needing heavy, vehicle-mounted systems. It's one of those tools you hope you never need, but when you do, you're glad it's there, effective and straightforward. Upgrading the original Igla, the Igla S brings in an automated fire control system, improving its hit probability and giving it better effectiveness against fast-moving aerial targets. This 72mm missile system is designed to ensure that even in the chaos of combat, infantry can still engage aircraft with precision. It's an improvement that helps Russian forces stay competitive against modern air threats, offering more confidence in what was already a reliable system. The Verba takes everything the Igla did and makes it better. With its automated fire control and enhanced targeting, this 72mm man-portable air defense system brings Russian infantry the latest in shoulder-fired missile technology. The Verba is designed to engage a wider range of aerial targets, from drones to low-flying aircraft, making it a versatile tool in modern combat. It's a modern solution to an age-old problem, keeping the skies clear of enemy aircraft without relying on heavier, more cumbersome systems. The F-1 grenade has been a staple of Russian forces since World War II, and it's still just as deadly today. This fragmentation grenade isn't subtle. It spreads deadly shrapnel over a wide area, making it ideal for clearing enemy positions. The catch? The blast radius is just as deadly to the person throwing it if they're not careful. Generations of soldiers have learned to throw it and get down fast, because in close combat, there's no such thing as a clean kill when fragmentation is involved. RGD-5, another old school grenade that's still doing the job. The RGD-5 is slightly smaller than the F1, but don't let that fool you, it's still got plenty of punch. With millions in stockpiles, this grenade is a simple, effective tool for Russian forces. It's not about fancy features, it's just about getting the job done, throwing it, and moving on. It's proof that you don't need the latest tech to make something work when it's proven and reliable. The RGN is a grenade with a twist, literally. Unlike standard grenades that give the enemy a chance to react, this one detonates on contact. The fuse arms mid-flight, and once it hits something solid, whether it's a wall or an unfortunate target, it explodes immediately. The result? No time for anyone to react. It's a great tool for close quarters combat, where you want to make sure the enemy doesn't have a chance to throw your grenade back. RGO. If you need a grenade that gives the enemy a little more time to think, but still guarantees a hit, the RGO is the answer. With a 3-second fuse, it's designed for tactical applications, where you need to get a grenade into a position, but don't want it to explode too early. It's the kind of weapon you use when you need to get around a corner or throw into a building, but you're not sure exactly when it'll land. Just throw, take cover, and let it do its job. RDG-2. Sometimes it's not about killing, it's about hiding. The RDG-2 is a smoke grenade, and while it's not going to take out any enemies, it'll give you the cover you need to move or conceal your position. Used by Russian forces for decades, this grenade creates a thick smoke screen, making it harder for the enemy to pinpoint you. RDG-U. Just like everything else, smoke grenades get modernized too. The RDG-U is the updated version with improvements that make it more reliable and efficient in tactical operations. Introduced in 2023, this modernized grenade gives Russian troops the same concealment, but with better performance when it's needed most. Whether you're advancing on a target or retreating to safety, the RDG-U keeps you invisible when visibility could mean your death. When you're out of options and there's a tank heading right at you, sometimes you throw a grenade. The RKG-3 is designed to target armor, but it's not easy getting close enough to throw it, means being within range of machine guns and other threats. But when you've got nothing left, the RKG-3 is there to give you a shot at taking down something much bigger than yourself. The MON-50 takes the idea of the Claymore mine and cranks it up. A simple tripwire or remote detonation turns this mine into a nightmare for anyone caught within its blast radius. When activated, over 500 steel ball bearings blast outward in a deadly 60-degree arc, tearing through anything in its path. It's raw, unrelenting violence, perfect for ambushes or creating no-go zones where you're not just stopping in advance, you're eliminating the enemy in seconds. MON-90. If the MON-50 doesn't provide enough coverage, then the MON-90 definitely does. With a 90-meter kill radius and 2,000 projectiles, this mine isn't just a deterrent, it's a massacre waiting to happen. The defensive perimeter becomes an impenetrable wall of death. Attackers who think they've found a weak point are quickly decimated, caught in a web of explosive chaos before they even realize the danger. Some mines are just overkill, and the MON-100 is the perfect example. 100 meters of destruction, with 400 steel projectiles fired across that distance, creates a kill zone that's more like a killing field. Command detonation lets defenders time the explosion perfectly, ensuring that anyone who steps into that space never steps out again. It's not about just stopping an assault, it's about making sure no one survives it. At 100 meters of range, the MON-200 is the largest directional mine in Russia's arsenal, and is designed to keep entire units from even thinking about crossing its path. When activated, it creates an area so deadly that survival is a matter of luck. If you want to get through, you'd better go around. This mine turns a single approach into a death trap, ensuring that whoever decides to move forward will have to pay a steep price. The OZM is the kind of mine that keeps on giving long after the fighting stops. Half a kilogram of TNT in this fragmentation mine will ruin someone's day, especially when activated by a tripwire, pressure, or remote control. The Soviet-era design means these mines are still buried in old conflict zones, continuing to be a danger to anyone who doesn't remember their location. It's the kind of reminder that war doesn't really end when the fighting stops. It's easy to dismiss small explosives, but the POMS proves that sometimes size doesn't matter. With just 75 grams of TNT, this little mine packs a deadly punch, especially when the enemy doesn't see it coming. While the blast radius is smaller than some modern mines, it's still plenty enough to incapacitate or kill. In the world of mines, it's not about how big you are, it's about hitting hard when it counts. Pressure activated and deadly quiet, the PMN mine sits waiting for its prey. At 240 grams of TNT, this mine is designed to disable or kill anyone unfortunate enough to step on it. It's the perfect tool for making sure that every step taken in a specific area carries the risk of death. It turns a seemingly safe walk into a nerve-wracking game of chance. When tanks start rolling in, you need more than a few grams of TNT. The TM-46 has 5.7 kilograms of the stuff, designed specifically to take down vehicles that weigh dozens of tons. This pressure-activated mine makes it clear that certain roads are off-limits without the right clearance. It's the kind of tool you use to make sure armored forces don't just waltz through your defenses without thinking twice. TM-57. Slightly beefed up from the TM-46, the TM-57 pushes the envelope with 6.3 kilograms of TNT. It's just a little more explosive, making it even more effective against tanks and other heavy vehicles. The extra weight might not sound like much, but in the world of anti-tank mines, every kilogram counts when you're up against modern armor. At 7.5 kilograms of TNT, the TM62 is a serious piece of equipment. Designed specifically to counter mechanized units, this mine doesn't just slow things down, it stops them in their tracks. Once it's laid, it waits quietly for a heavy vehicle to trigger it, creating persistent threats that don't fade with time. It's a weapon that's been around for decades because it gets the job done every time. TM83 seismic and optical sensors make the TM83 more than just a passive threat. It actively seeks out targets. This 13-kilogram mine can detect vehicles and fire its deadly charge before you even realize you're in range. Unlike traditional pressure plates, it's not just waiting for the right weight, it's actively hunting for its next victim, making it a dangerous and unpredictable addition to any minefield. TM89. Magnetic sensors give the TM89 the ability to detect armored vehicles with precision. When it senses the right metal overhead, the 10-kilogram warhead goes off, delivering a punch that's hard to ignore. This is one of the most effective anti-tank mines in use today, combining modern sensor technology with the explosive power needed to breach modern armor. And finally, a look at the future. Kalashnikov wasn't content with just the standard rifle. They decided vehicle crews needed something more compact, without sacrificing firepower. Enter the AK-12K and AK-15K. These are shortened versions of their full-size cousins, offering the same 5.45 and 7.62 chamberings in a more compact package. These prototypes might not be issued yet, but if they hit the field, they'll give troops a reliable carbine that's tailor-made for the confined spaces of vehicles and close-quarters environments. AM-17, another carbine, another question mark. The AM-17 is a mysterious piece of Russian weaponry, somewhere between announced and we'll see if it happens. Built around a 5.45 caliber, this carbine has made the rounds in the rumor mills. But no one knows much beyond that. Will it hit the battlefield? Who knows? But it's part of the growing list of might-haves in Russian military development. SV-98M sniper rifles aren't about reinventing the wheel, they're about improving what works. The SV-98M takes the already solid SV-98 and refines it for modern snipers, adding the upgrades needed for enhanced performance. Introduced in May 2020, this evolution of a proven design doesn't try to change the game, it just makes the shooter's job easier. Sometimes, the best weapon is one that's familiar, just better. T-14 Armata. The T-14 Armata was supposed to be the future of tank warfare, replacing older models and defining Russian armored units for decades. But years later, the T-14 still hasn't seen the kind of widespread deployment expected. Instead, it shows up in parades and promotional videos, while the old T-72 seconds and T-90 seconds get constant upgrades and field deployments. The T-14 may have the potential to revolutionize tank design, but so far, it's been more about potential than practical combat use. The T-15 Armata isn't just another infantry fighting vehicle, it's Russia's attempt to drag armored personnel carriers into the modern age. Built on the same Armata Universal Combat platform as the T-14 tank, this heavy IFV was supposed to replace the BTR-T and give Russian infantry a ride that could actually survive on today's battlefield. The concept is solid. Unmanned turret, heavy armor, and room for a full squad. But, like its tank cousin, the T-15 spends more time in promotional videos than it does in actual combat zones. It's a glimpse of what Russia's armored forces could be if they ever get around to fielding it in numbers that matter. When Russia decided it needed to modernize its entire fleet of infantry fighting vehicles, the Kurganets 25 was born. This modular platform is designed to replace the aging BMP series with both IFV and APC variants, giving commanders flexibility depending on the mission. The idea is Smart One chassis, multiple configurations, easier logistics. It's been in development for years, and while prototypes look impressive, widespread deployment remains somewhere between coming soon and we'll see. The Kurganets represents Russia's recognition that Cold War designs can't cut it anymore, even if translating that recognition into actual fielded vehicles has proven challenging. The Boomerang has been on Russia's wish list since 2012, designed to replace the BTR series of wheeled armored personnel carriers. This 8-wheeled platform promises better protection, firepower, and mobility than what came before, with both IFV and APC variants planned. It's amphibious, it's got room for troops, and it looks the part of a modern fighting vehicle. The catch, like so many Russian modernization programs, it's been planned and tested for over a decade, while older BTRs keep grinding away in actual combat. The boomerang might be the future, but that future keeps getting pushed further down the road. Air defense at the company level got a serious upgrade with the two S-38 Derivatsiya PVO. Built on the BMP-3 chassis, this self-propelled anti-aircraft gun is meant to replace the aging ZSU 23-4 Shilka, completed development in 2023. It brings modern fire control and a punch that can engage both aircraft and ground targets. Unlike some of Russia's perpetual future systems, this one actually made it through development and into production. When you need to keep enemy helicopters and drones at bay, while your mechanized units push forward, the Derivatsiya PVO gives you that capability without needing a dedicated air defense battery. The Sosna R takes short-range air defense and mounts it on platforms. Russian forces already use either BMP-3 or BTR-80 chassis. This system is designed to replace the SA-13 Gopher and 9K-35 Strela 10, bringing better missiles and targeting to the battlefield. It's about keeping low-flying threats like helicopters and attack aircraft from turning your armored column into scrap metal. The modular approach means you can bolt this system onto existing vehicles, making it easier to deploy without building an entirely new platform from scratch. It's practical, it's effective, and it plugs a gap that needed filling. Gibka S. Very short-range air defense sounds like a niche role, but when drones and low-flying aircraft are hunting your positions, you need something fast and mobile. The Gibka S completed trials in 2019 and started getting delivered in 2022. Mounted on light tactical vehicles, it gives smaller units the ability to engage aerial threats without waiting for heavier systems to show up. It's the kind of weapon you need when a quadcopter or attack helicopter is bearing down on your position and you've got seconds to respond. The Vishrad role might not be glamorous, but it's becoming more critical as drones proliferate on modern battlefields. Not every mission needs a heavy armored personnel carrier. Sometimes you just need a light, fast vehicle to move troops around without the bulk. The Atlet completed trials in 2021 as Russia's answer to the infantry mobility vehicle role. It's not meant to slug it out with enemy armor, it's meant to get soldiers where they need to go quickly and safely in lower threat environments. Think of it as Russia's version of platforms other militaries use for patrol, reconnaissance, and rapid movement when you don't need 30 tons of steel, but still want some protection and off-road capability.